Welcome to SteeleWatching, which is a podcast for Remington Steele fans. My name is Sara, and I am the good cop for today's episode.
You're the good cop? Okay, I guess that means I'm the bad cop.
Well, you...
Oh boy, I'm in trouble. I'm in so much trouble.
Well, they're going to get mad at you this week, not me, so...
Yes. Well, I am Eric. I guess I'm the bad cop for the week. So there you go. Ooh.
And speaking about good cops and bad cops, before we get into talking about the episode, we wanted to talk reviews, didn't we?
Yes, we wanted to talk reviews because we got one. And guess what? They say that you're not really a podcaster until you get your first 1-star review. So we are officially podcasters now.
Hooray! It only took 2 years.
Well, I'm going to read the review. I'll leave names out of it here, and then I'll give you a chance to make the first comment, and then I'll follow up as well.
Sure.
And it was a 1-star review, and I really hope that the person who left this continues to listen and hears our response, because we have no other way to respond to this person. And we're not going to criticize or judge their comment. We just want to try and clarify and explain, because I think there's a
context,
a misunderstanding and a miscommunication here. Anyway, the review goes: too many unnecessary opinions and judging the show by today's acceptable behaviors. Go ahead.
So I think that it's human nature to judge by what we see as the here and now. That being said, that's definitely not what we're trying to do. Like, we're not trying to sit and pass judgment on the show from 2024 when we're talking about 1984. Like, we're literally talking about 40 years ago. So that's certainly not the intention, to sit and say, well, this is not acceptable, because I mean, we know that, but at the same time, sometimes it is a little funny to point out the inconsistencies. Like, this would never fly. Like, when I mentioned the seatbelt thing, like, clearly I know that in this day and age, we're all wearing our seatbelts, but to me, it's funny to see them tooling around with a baby in their arms, doing, high-speed chases and things like that when they're not wearing their seatbelts. 2024 me goes, wear your seatbelts, but it's done with love. It's certainly not meant to be me sitting there like, well, this show's terrible, they're not wearing their seatbelts and they should be wearing them. And I'm not trying to make fun. I'm just sort of, from where I'm coming from, it is, if we ignored the difference in time, like if we just sat and played this off without even acknowledging that this is 40 years later and we're coming from a different place, it would be disingenuous, because we are 40 years later.
Yeah. Well, the part about unnecessary opinions, that's kind of the whole purpose of a TV rewatch commentary podcast, is we are expressing opinions.
And they are just that. Like, they're opinions, right? Like, people can disagree with them.
Right.
Which is totally cool.
And the thing is, I wish this person had given us more details as to what kind of opinions. From the context of the comment, I'm thinking they mean in the context of judging the show by today's acceptable behaviors. Yeah. But it's not entirely clear that, it could be this person is just commenting about our opinions about the makeup or the acting or whatever. But I'm going to say it's within the context of judging the show by today's acceptable behaviors. And I agree with you, and I agree with him that is inappropriate if that's what we were doing. But I don't think we really are. And that's not what we're trying to do it anywhere.
No, I'm just saying sometimes it comes up and it's somewhat unavoidable.
Yeah, and if it comes across as us judging the show by today's acceptable behaviors, that's really not what we're trying to do. We're trying to, first of all, you like you said, you can't really ignore them sometimes. And there's two factors here. First of all, there are some people out there that do judge shows from the past, books
sure.
from
absolutely
the past by today's standards, but you can't really do that on a TV show or a movie or a book from 1980 or 1880 or 1080. You've got to look at the context of where the person writing it was coming from.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that there are people out there who, guess what? They didn't live in the 1980s.
I mean, I barely did.
So,
I had 8 years.
Don't.
It was the first 8.
Yeah. So they're going to look at something and they can say, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it. Why did they do that? That's just not, and they
I feel like that's most of my questions because, like I said, I was born in 82. So half of what I'm going to do is sit here going, can you explain this to me? Because for somebody who was born in that year, like some of this is not, it won't make any sense. Some of it does, most of it does, but like, if it's going to be me asking you, Eric,
so
tell me what this means.
It's really a matter of sometimes us just trying to provide the context so somebody who looks at it and says, well, this doesn't make sense as viewed from today's society, we can just kind of try and explain it. And in trying to explain it, sometimes you have to do a comparison. So to this reviewer, we apologize if we're not clear, if sometimes it comes across being differently than what we intend, but please stick with us and just realize that we're not trying to judge the show by today's standards. It's just sometimes maybe it comes off that way.
And also, like, in terms of what you're saying with the unnecessary opinions, we have tried very hard to make it clear that we love this show. And we're not doing this to tear it down or to rip it apart or to say, well, this was terrible and this was terrible. I would like to think that even the episodes we don't like, we find stuff in it that we do. And like I listened to a podcast once on a show that I loved, and it was pretty much 5 seasons of the 2 co-hosts just tearing it down every other second. And it got like, I don't even know why I listened to the whole thing, but I did. And by the end, I kept thinking, do you even like this? Like, that's certainly not what I want to do with this.
Exactly.
There's going to be times when we're going to be like, this does not work for us. And that's like with the opinion piece, opinions are just that, they're opinions. And we've certainly got like, I love it when people comment in the sound bites as they're listening and comment on the stuff that we're saying, because sometimes people agree with us and sometimes they don't. Like, I know there's a lot of people that do not agree on the fact that I hate that he says babe in the Steel Threads. That is not it's a fan favorite for some. It is not for me, but like, I love the rest of the scene. Like, it's, so stuff like this is there's going to be moments we're not going to like stuff, and there's going to be moments we're going to love it. And hopefully that balances out, which is why I made the good cop, bad cop joke, because I know this is not one of Eric's favorite episodes. And I love a good bottle episode. So I'm going to.
As you said about that other podcast you were listening to, where the 2 hosts were just denigrating the entire everything about it. That is one of the things that I don't like about listening to some podcasts about my favorite shows either. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why when we started this, we both agreed that we were not going to take that approach. We love the show. There's things that we're going to dislike, but we're not going to sit here and make, we don't approach it from the standpoint of, well, we have to be legitimate reviewers, and that means we have to tear everything apart.
I am definitely not legitimate in any way, shape, or form. So anyway,
to the person who left the review, thank you for leaving the review. We're again, like I said, we're sorry that it might come across differently than what we intend, but please stick with us. I think we offer enough to enjoy, even if there are things about our presentation that you don't enjoy. So thank you for the response and the feedback and the opportunity to respond back to you. Anyway, so I'm done.
Also, in terms of the today's standards, I just wanted to point out one more thing. This is just a personal story. This might be a rabbit hole we don't need to go down, but I showed my students a tape cassette the other day and asked them what it was. They stared at me blankly until one of them guessed that it was a VHS, and something inside me died, like just died inside.
Hey, if you wanted to really confuse them, take a beta tape.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I popped into my head because I was like, "What do you guys think this is?" And they were just like, "Crickets." Okay, and then one person, actually, I have a cricket sound. Hold on. That was it.
Yes.
If I'd been more polished, I would have been, ready with that. But yeah, they guessed it was a VHS tape. So yeah. Anyway. Okay. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about the season 2, episode 15, Elegy in Steele. This episode first aired on February 21st, 1984. And it was written by Brian Allen Lane and directed by Kevin Connor, not to be confused with Kevin Costner, which I kept seeing every time I looked. I was like, wait, Kevin Costner? No, it's not Kevin Costner. Anyway, so, one other thing before we get into the episode synopsis, and I'm just looking this up right now, is that I did get permission to talk about the fan fiction that was written in regards to Steele waking up stuffed in a locker.
Okay.
And I spoke to the author, and I'm just looking for confirmation on. Here we go. Okay, here it is. The fan fiction is called Steele Fighting, and the author is Nora Bolt, 56.
Nora.
Yes, Nora Bolt. Yeah. So those who know, you know. Yeah, so you can find that on Archive of Our Own for those who want to have a go and to read that. So that's in response to my my sort of challenge when we did our episode on Steel Knuckles and Glass Jaws, writing a fanfic delving into Mr. Steele's past as the Kilkenny Kid and explaining how he ended up in that gym locker. So.
And I will try and get the link for that, or you can give me the link for that. Yeah. Somebody can get us the link for that, and I will try and include it in the show notes for that episode. So awesome. Anybody who's already downloaded it to their pod player can go to the website.
It's a good one.
Find it there. So yeah, there we go.
So thank you, Nora Bolt, for that story.
And now that we're all done with the detours and rabbit holes.
The TV guide synopsis is what I went with here, and it is Archenemy Major Descoine. See, I did not realize I had been saying his name wrong. Apparently, I had been. I've always, in my head, it's always been Descoine, because I guess no, but hear me out, because like I grew up learning French, right? So it would be pronounced Descoine in the French. So.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so it's Descoine, apparently. Whoops. Appears out of nowhere and promises Laura and Steele that they will be dead within the hour. So
Did you read the DVD liner note?
I did not, because I was pretty satisfied with the TV guide. Do you have it? What did it say?
I have it, and I have a huge issue with it.
Oh,
Laura and Remington's lives are in the hands of a deranged magician. Hello,
what?
Magician?
What? Okay, all right.
Well, I can see how some of what he does is magic related and magician related, but I'm sorry, no, he's not.
He's not pulling anything out of his sleeve.
He's a deranged killer who was also an embezzler, and no. Anyway,
okay, yeah, no, that's I didn't get that far because I was like, oh, the synopsis is pretty good, but had I read that, I would have had issues with it too.
And again, thank you to our wonderful source author Judith Moose for all of this information about the DVD liner notes and the TV guide synopses and all that other stuff.
Absolutely. So helpful.
Yes. Even if she doesn't know it. It's not like we've ever said anything about her before. I mean, it's just...
No, just totally...
we've just taken advantage of her work and her experience and her intelligence and just given her absolutely zero credit.
None. So we're remedying that right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we start with an aerial overhead shot of LA, in particular our Century City towers. A helicopter.
And another shot. And another shot.
Yeah.
And another shot. The episode came up 45 seconds short. Can we just add a bunch of helicopter shots at the beginning to kind of pad it out, please? Thank you.
Here's the bad cop right there. So my only question about this was that it looks like he's flying the chopper from the shots that we do get. I don't see anyone else in the helicopter with him, and yet it flies away.
Mm-hmm.
So someone else has to be flying it, correct?
Well, it's a two-man, at least a two-person chopper. So I think, actually, it probably seats more than that, but up front in the cockpit. And I think helicopters, unlike regular fixed-wing aircraft, might be flown from the right seat.
Oh.
So since he is in the left-hand seat, that would, I guess, make him the passenger.
Fair enough. Also, the other question that I had was, can you just fly a chopper and land on a random roof? Like, don't you need clearance for stuff like that?
You're a bad guy. You don't do anything with clearance. You just do it.
Well, I'm not saying he'd request it, but like, you would think it would ping for some sort of authority if they see, oh, hey, there's a random private helicopter landing on the roof of the Century City towers.
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah, typically, I would think that you had to get clearance because it is a landing pad. Although
I didn't see a landing pad. It just looked like a roof that was big enough to land a chopper on. I didn't see any sort of like land here signage.
Well, you might be right. No, you're right. There are no. It's not a marked landing pad,
which I would think would raise even more eyebrows, right? Because
but then again, how many people are just standing there in the building listening? Okay, is there somebody landing on the roof today? It's been 10 minutes since I've checked. Maybe I'll go back up and just open the door and peek outside to see if somebody's. But it does raise the question: how did he get in? Somebody obviously had to be inside to open the door for him. Maybe his daughter, I guess.
Well, either that or he picked up Steele's talent for picking logs.
Could be. Anyway,
so
enough of the helicopter.
He gets into we see him go down the stairs, so he's in the building, and then we switch over to the office. Mildred is opening the mail. So the chopper flies away, Descoine descends the stairway, and Mildred comes across some mail from the State Bureau of Investigative Services. And you know how much Mildred loves paperwork. So she actually does like a little ooh, like she
which
kind of like
actually raises a question for me.
Okay.
Well, you see that. Okay, it's from the Bureau of Investigative Services.
Yes. Yeah.
And they have these forms that need to be signed and filled out and returned, complete with a pre-addressed return envelope.
Yeah.
I don't know. Usually government agencies don't spend the money to give you an envelope to return something. They,
really?
They've got hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in a budget. They can't afford to do that. But you serfs with your measly thousands of dollars a year's wages, you can afford to do that.
No, I'm actually sorry. This is where our countries, I think, differ wildly, because anytime we get anything from the government that we have to send back, there's a pre-addressed envelope that goes with it.
What I've seen usually are like with the utility bills, where the utility bills will have something where there's an envelope with a little slot in it that you fold the paper over the correct way and it goes back. But I don't recall. I could be wrong. I don't usually get stuff from the government. I try to avoid. Getting stuff from the government.
Anytime we get anything from like Canada Revenue or anywhere that's like a government service, like my student loans, for example, and I have to send something back, like they always come in those little brown envelopes, and they always have another envelope inside with the address already printed on it and the sufficient postage like there already. Like we just send it back via Canada Post. But here's where I will admit something.
Okay.
I have never paid a utility bill. Ever. No, I'm serious. Like we
Oh,
rent.
you just steal it?
No, our rent is inclusive. So we don't pay utilities. The rent includes that. So literally I am 41 years old and I've never paid a hydro bill. I've never paid a water bill. I've never paid any sort of utility bills. So I couldn't speak to that.
Yeah, I just don't remember government agencies sending out pre-addressed envelopes as a matter of course with paperwork that needs to be returned. So.
I mean, that could be a difference of countries because, like I said, this is pretty common. This did not raise any eyebrows for me at all.
And it may also vary by state, I suppose, because this is a state Bureau of Investigative Services. So in California, they'll throw money at anything.
I'm going on the assumption that it's totally bogus. Like, period. Like, I'm assuming
it is, of course.
Okay. So I don't think it came from the government at all.
It's just that, Mildred being a former bureaucrat.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and saying, I don't remember that being a normal course of events to include this envelope. And if I am correct, then she should have questioned it as well. But
I think she just saw the time and went, oh no, they've got like an hour. They got to get this done because she checks the time. It's 11 o'clock. She gets up. She goes into their office. She's got the mail in hand. And this is where I stop and say, this was the time filler. This right here. Because, she gets there. She's immediately shushed by Laura and Steele, who is pouring something from a jar into a jar from a test tube very carefully. Mm-hmm. He's got a bunch of them all lined up in this little, holder. And he's, she's staring at him intently. He's like, this is where he always goes wrong. She tries to steady him. Mildred is scared. She says, what's going to happen? He drops the tiniest drop into the jar, then tells her he's going to stir it. She asks, is it safe? Goes ahead and stirs it anyway. Laura then produces 2 glasses with ice. He pours it into one glass, then into another, filtering it. Laura then produces a lime, which he puts on it as a garnish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-mm. Nope. No.
So
no.
I have a feeling my comments are slightly different from your comments. So you go first, and then we'll swap.
Well, first of all, what he's supposedly trying to create is a tropical itch.
I have the recipe.
Well, here's part of the problem. I ran into. Well, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Harry Yee was a bartender at the Hilton Hawaiian Gardens in Hawaii from as far back as 1957. He was there for over 30 years, and he has invented it's been documented, at least 15 tropical drinks. He was a tropical tiki drink pioneer, and he put together a lot of the drinks that are still used today. And in addition to the tropical itch, he is also credited with the invention of the Hawaiian cooler, the Blue Hawaii, and the Hawaiian Eye, which was featured in the 19 television series classic show called Hawaiian Eye, interestingly enough, starring Jack Lord. Now, I found several recipes. Most are similar, but most call for bourbon, and I found one that substitutes vodka.
I've got the vodka one.
And first of all, if you look at a photo of the real tropical itch, it looks nothing like what he ended up with.
No, this looks like a Caesar, first of all. And for those of you who don't know what a Caesar is, because I knew you were going to say that. A Caesar is a Canadian drink. It is a Canadian cocktail. And you guys might call it something different. I know you've got something similar to it. But basically, this is it's disgusting. I hate these things. It has a lime wedge. Celery or salt is needed, ice cubes, 1 ounce of vodka, Worcestershire sauce. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. Tabasco sauce, and then tomato and clam juice, like Mott's Clamato, and a celery stick. And it's nasty. It is nasty. I know that you guys call it something different. There's something similar, but this is a Caesar. It's a big thing here. And so initially I thought he was making a Caesar because it looks like a Caesar.
Yeah, because the actual tropical itch is a yellowish orange because one of the main ingredients is passion fruit.
Yeah, and the orange Caraco.
Yeah, and lemon juice. So they're all yellowish, orangish based drinks. It looks nothing like what he's got there. Yeah, I don't know. He may be making something that somebody called a tropical itch, but
yeah, well, that's what I assume. Like, because so also here's I've got two questions here.
One, and according to the Modern Tiki website, a lot of tropical itches are terrible, really, really terrible. This is largely because they aren't made with the original ingredients, or they're simply made with too little attention to detail. So that's where the vodka version comes in, because so that ain't it.
Here's what I found. This was the vodka version. Mm-hmm. Okay, so everyone get your pens out if you want the if you want to write this down, because I'm about to give you this recipe. 1 tablespoon or half an ounce of vodka, 1 tablespoon or half an ounce of orange Caraco, a dash of Angostura bitters, whatever those are, 1/8 of a teaspoon of orgeat syrup, half a cup of passion fruit juice, 2 tablespoons of dark rum, a pineapple wedge, a lime wedge, and then you have to add a paper parasol and an itch stick, which is apparently a back scratcher.
Mm-hmm.
So
now I was not able to find the original Harry Yee recipe. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but I wasn't able to find it. And what I found, though, was I found some consistency between them. A tablespoon or half ounce of vodka. No, that's the vodka one. Sorry. You did that one. 1 ounce of bourbon, 1 ounce of 151 proof rum, half an ounce of orange Caraco or triple sec, half ounce of lemon juice, 3 ounces of passion fruit puree, 2 ounces of water, 1 ounce dark rum, and 1 to 2 dashes of bitters, and then the back scratcher.
Yeah, I can tell you why most people think it tastes terrible, because you're putting like bitters and other, like, that does not sound appetite anyway.
I don't know. I've never actually had a mixed drink as far as I can recall. So I don't have any kind of comment one way or the other about any of them.
A friend of mine is a bartender, so like this it does not sound good. But the other thing that I would like to know is why they are mixing boozy drinks at 11 o'clock in the morning. Do they not have any work to do?
Because 10 o'clock is too early.
Right. Well, I just mean, like, this is the part that feels to me like they needed to add extra time into the episode. Mm-hmm. Right? Because this is a weird thing to be doing at 11 a.m. Mm-hmm. ever. Like, but especially at your workplace. Now, I get that they own said workplace, but still
they rented, but okay.
Like, I'd love to know, I'd love to know how that conversation came about. Were they just talking about it, and then Steele was like, I gotta get my beakers? Like, where did that, what was the progression?
Well, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. It's 11 o'clock. They've got an hour to do this. They could have avoided this drink situation entirely. Started at 8 o'clock when they come in, the early morning mail, which I don't, depending on how early they get their mail or whatever, it could have been left over from the night before, and then progressed through the show up until noon. Because I've got a problem. This entire episode supposedly takes place in the span of an hour.
Yeah, well, this is a bottle episode.
Yeah, but if you look at it, if you look at the wide range of neighborhoods that they cover, supposedly on foot, all of the things that happen supposedly in this hour, I'm going to call bovine excrement on that.
Bovine excrement. All right.
No, it doesn't fly. There's no way that you could go to all those locations within an hour. It's not going to happen. I don't even have to know Los Angeles. I've never been to this area of Los Angeles, but I don't even have to, because I can recognize that a lot of these places aren't going to be near the Century Towers. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But for my part, I love stuff like this where they have like a small space or a small amount of time where something has to be done, where it's like taking place in quote unquote real time. So I don't mind that it's supposedly like an hour is not really an hour. That I can hand wave that. Cause like some of my favorite movies, like Speed, for example, Speed takes place in the space of 2 hours. There's a movie called Nick of Time with Johnny Depp where like his daughter's taken hostage. He's got 2 hours to like kill somebody.
And how long do those movies run? Probably
2 hours.
About 2 hours. Right? Exactly. But there was a MASH episode where they had to get something done on this guy. He was going to die if they didn't do it within 27 minutes. Guess what?
Oh yeah.
27-minute episode. It's like, okay, let's at least be fair with the audience on this. I'm sorry, it's not fair.
See, he's the bad cop. I don't mind it because I think it's fun, but the drink thing sort of baffles me because like I do agree that they could have spent more time filling out that hour, or at least sort of. But I guess they only had so many sets they could work with, and they had to make it kind of fit. But yeah, it just. Yeah. As far as the drink goes, he puts the bamboo back scratcher in it, and Laura asks him if he's going to drink it or just stare at it. He tells her it's been 5 years since Sue Akers, an American expat and soldier of fortune, mixed him a tropical itch on Mykonos. I'm assuming this is where he was Xenos?
Presumably. I mean, we don't have anything to confirm or deny, but yeah, presumably.
I would love it if somebody... I should do this someday, but I would love it if somebody could find a timeline on like where he was and when. Because no, I'm serious. Because like this is 5 years ago, right? But how long ago was he in South America? Like I can't remember how many years that was. 12? I think it might have been 12. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'd love to, if somebody could do that to see if they had like actually mapped this out, it'd be cool.
Yeah, you'd probably wind up with a bunch of different versions of it that can all be defended, but yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So, and then, okay, I looked up, because I thought maybe Sue Akers might have been a real person. No, I mean, yes and no. There are many people named Sue Akers, as I found in my Google search, but none that I could find that were American expats in Greece during, like, the late 70s, but I did find... So here are some of the Sue Akers that I found, if anybody's curious. There's a Sue Akers that is an actor. There was a Sue Akers that was a retired deputy assistant commissioner of the British Metropolitan Police Service who joined the force in 1976. There was a Sue Akers that was a singer with a band. So yeah, Sue Akers has had a prolific career, it seems, spanning all sorts of walks of life.
She's probably about 350 years old by this point.
Well, there's a couple of obituaries, so in a few cases she's dead. But I just thought
Twice.
That was kind of
3 times.
I just thought it was funny because I Googled it and I was like, nope, can't find the right Sue Akers. But so I'm assuming this is just a name he made up. But yeah,
made up names on a TV show? No.
But you answered one of my questions already because I was wondering why. I know they didn't have the internet, but I was wondering why he couldn't just go to a bar and ask how the drink is made. And apparently that's why, as you fill this in, it's a somewhat.
Nobody makes it the same way twice.
Yeah. So
except Harry Yee. Yes.
Okay.
Anyway.
So yeah, Mildred wonders why he can't just call and ask her, and he tells Mildred that she ran afoul of the Greek authorities and the recipe died with her. So, he takes a sip, chokes, and spits it out in the plant, claiming he stirred it a shade too well. So it's
that
obviously
make a difference.
I'm guessing it's just meant to be awful. I'm guessing it's like a Mott's Clamato or like a Caesar, because I defy anybody. And Canadians, if you're listening, if any of you actually like Caesars, you're lying. You're lying. Nobody likes it. Is vegetable juice with Tabasco sauce. And nobody can even pronounce Worcestershire sauce, let alone drink it. Why would you do that? Sorry, that's my tangent.
I understand that combination is a useful hangover remedy, according to some people, but yeah.
But if it's got booze in it, it's not much of a hangover remedy.
Hair of the
dog. All right, that's a soundbite. Yeah, so... Yeah, it's clearly, I think it's just awful, period. I don't think he's ever going to find whatever he's looking for there. No. But Mildred then gives them the mail, which she says is a questionnaire from the State Bureau of Investigation. She tells them they have to fill them out and put it in the envelopes attached. And she says the mailman will come back at noon for them. They never do fill it out. And yet at the end, I know I'm jumping ahead here, at the end they just sign it and put it in the envelopes. And I'm like, so the State Bureau of Investigations is getting blank forms in return? Like, cool, all right.
That's how I send my forms back.
Well, if
Here, you're going to make it up anyway, so just take it, put my signature on it, and
put in
fill in whatever
you
you want to.
So yeah, she says the mailman's coming back. And here's another fun part about this episode that I find really amusing. She says she's going to be back in a couple of hours. Now, Mildred has not been a stranger to the old, I'm going out. I'll be back whenever I like. But in this case, Laura says, isn't it a bit early for lunch? And she says, lunch, munch. I have a hot date with a guy I met at my bowling league. I want a job where I can just leave on a whim for personal reasons or mix drinks at work. I don't know about you, but this job's looking better and better every minute.
I want to get a job as a millionaire.
Yeah, fair.
I can spend money with the best of them.
But I gotta say, like, Mildred has a set on her to be able to just say, like, yeah, guys, I'm leaving. I'll be back in a couple hours. I'm going on a date. Like,
well, she's still got friends at the IRS.
That's true. She's.
I guess if Mildred, you got to be like, I can make a phone call.
I can send I've got documents that could be. She's blackmailing her way into dating on her lunch period. That makes sense. So she leaves. She gets on the elevator. In the meantime, we see Descoine get off the elevator and walk straight into the offices and into Steele's office where they are cleaning up the drink ingredients. He announces himself to the two of them. Laura offers him a drink while Steele calls the police. He has the phone and starts to dial when Descoine asks them to hear him out, claiming that he came of his own free will. And for some bizarre reason, Steele puts the phone down at Laura's urging.
Yeah, I've got it written down here. Is there some rule that says that if a bad guy shows up on his own free will, that you're not allowed to call the cops?
Yeah, that one sort of baffles me because, like, he's a murderer. He tried to kill you.
Yeah.
Still should place that 911 call. I would do that. So Steele says that he's given Detective Jarvis fits looking for him. Descoine sarcastically says, as long as I haven't been the cause of consternation for you. And Steele says that he and Laura haven't given him a single thought, which is kind of funny. He stands up, he puts on his jacket, and again I say, why aren't they calling the police? But okay, sure. This is where we're going with this. Descoine says he's not here to reminisce. He says it is an anniversary, 3 years since the suicide of his darling Lily, which we know he blames Steele for. And interestingly, in the script, he gives the date as February 21st, which is the date that this episode aired. So they
planned it.
They did, which was kind of, I think that's clever, personally. Laura points out all they did was investigate the embezzlement fraud that he and Lily Martins were involved in. Steele adds that she was the one who chose to end her life. And this obviously, this little recap is clearly for the benefit of the audience because, again, episodic television, even if they missed that episode that introduced that plot line, this little bit here tells us he's a wanted man. He's come after them before. They put him away, or at least Laura did, but doesn't really matter because he didn't know any different for embezzlement, and that his partner died by suicide. And we all get this in the space of, 10 seconds, which I think works fairly well as a recap. Yeah. They could have gone on longer, and they didn't. In the script, they do, and I'm kind of glad they cut it out. They cut it down a bit because in the script, it would have felt a bit more forced because they sort of go into the little nitty gritty, like, oh, the acid key. Oh, you knew it was going to, not relevant, not necessary. So
we
shorter
don't
is
get
better.
that much detail.
Yeah, exactly. So Descoine says he's not here to reminisce. The anniversary is a celebration of sorts. He goes on to say that they don't have a choice but to participate. Steele claims, you're not a well man, Major, and says that he needs help, which I love the way he delivers that line. It's just like, you're not okay. You know this, right? Like, it's kind of like when you're face to face with somebody who's clearly lost the plot and you're kind of asking yourself, do they know they've lost the plot? Or, in this case, Steele's like, yeah, you're not well. Major Descoine goes on to say that in order to commemorate her death, he plans to bring about theirs. He tells them no matter what help they get or where they go, by 12 o'clock noon, they will be dead. He then sets off some sort of smoke bomb thingy and disappears, leaving his, and it says muffler in the script, but I'm not saying muffler. I refuse. Scarf. This is a scarf. So we clarified in that other episode that a scarf is like a thinner version of a muffler. Muffler is like a winter scarf. This is not a winter scarf. This is just like a
decorative.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's from a country club, for heaven's sake.
Yes.
So yeah, they grab it. They run after him, but he's already on the elevator. Steele's frustrated that he can just come after them whenever he wants. So Laura suggests going after him while the trail is still fresh. Steele asks about the threat to kill them, and Laura doesn't see the difference between today or tomorrow. Like, it doesn't matter. He's still going to come after us. We might as well try it now. They look down at the scarf, and Steele notes that he tore the maker's label off of it, and Laura sees a faint impression. Now, initially, I asked myself, why would this even matter? Like, your quarry is going down the elevator. Run down the stairs, chase him that way. But in the script, it gives a bit more detail as to why they would do this. They're hoping to find a record of the purchase and or credit card information if that was used, which might lead them to an address. So I guess that makes a little more sense, but it still feels a little bit like an odd detour.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely an odd detour. What does it matter where he got the scarf, really? I mean, that would be based on the presumption that they've got a lot of time to follow it up, and they've only got less than an hour. So, yeah, kind of a waste of time.
So they go back inside. She grabs the lime on the desk, squeezes the juice onto it. She asks him for a hairdryer, which I gotta love the fact that he's got a hairdryer in his bathroom. We know that hairdryer's not for her, right? Like, he comes, the only time he shows up early for work is when his hair's not quite right, and he's got to like style it a little bit to get it like nice and full bodied. And that's
or he's gotten beat up by a gang of banditos while investigating a video game company.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to fix his hair. That's 100% his hairdryer. But so he brings it in. She asks him for the hairdryer. He grabs it and a cigarette lighter, which he also has. She manages to blow dry it and then put like the lighter underneath it, which reveals it's from Bell Oaks Country Club.
I got a problem.
Okay.
I don't think that works that way. Now, yes, invisible ink. Okay. Using like lemon juice or lime juice as invisible ink works because you are taking that ink and you're writing with it.
Right.
And so by using the hairdryer and the cigarette lighter, you're going to reveal what was written in the ink. What she does is she just pours a bunch of stuff, a bunch of juice onto the scarf, and then, you made a big blob with the juice. That's what you're going to get is a big blob. At least that's how I read it. You're going to get. It's not going to reveal letters underneath it. It's just going to be a blob of juice. Anyway.
As somebody who did not do well in science, I buy in. But I mean, here's the thing, like the reason that they did, and literally the purpose of the drink experiment was so that they would have a lemon or a lime handy. That's the only reason, because otherwise you wouldn't have that sitting in your office. So it's a bit of a weird, like she could have had a salad with a lemon in it.
Yeah.
Like that would have worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, that would have made more sense at 11 a.m. is all I'm saying. As a salad, as opposed
or seltzer water with lime or lemon in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she theorizes that if he bought it there, they might have a record of purchase. So did you notice Steele's desk?
Not only does he have stuff on the desk, he has stuff in the drawers.
Yeah,
and he's got the agency gun in the drawer.
What? Yeah. I'm sorry. I got to go back up and see who wrote this because I don't know if they've written for this show before.
Yes.
Have they?
I think he did. Yeah.
Brian Allen Lane. Okay.
Yeah, I think he did an episode already previously.
Brian, FYI, there's never anything in the drawer.
Yeah.
So.
And Brian, you don't stuff a gun down the back of your pants without a holster.
We will get there. because I did notice that. But there's more issues I have with that whole bit. So we'll get there. But yeah, so I have literally in my notes, Steele grabs the gun from the drawer, which has things in it for once, and says that he hopes he hasn't beaten them there. And then I have in bold, is it a good idea to keep the agency gun in a drawer? I'm guessing not.
Yeah. What I've got is, at least it isn't in a shoebox on the top shelf of the closet, so I guess that's an improvement.
Well, it's also loaded, right? Because he shoots it later. So he's got a loaded gun in his drawer, but no pencils. Like, Anyway, so...
Hey, priorities. We're a detective agency. We don't use pencils.
It's like my students when they bring their Nintendo Switch to class, but no pens. Anyway, so Laura points out that he said no matter where they go or what they do, they can't escape. Steele wonders if he has poisoned them and that if they're due to die within the hour, which kinda, I mean, they're not poisoned yet.
What did they have that he would have provided to them that would have poisoned them?
Yeah, but like,
I mean, other than Steele's drink.
he's not far off. Like that is the Major's plan. It's just they haven't been poisoned yet. I guess unless they did, like, maybe because if they had already licked the envelopes, they would already be poisoned, right? So yeah. Anyway, either way,
that's that too.
That's kind of the plan. So he comments that he would like to wring his neck before he goes, and then we get a scene change. They're at the country club. They see a security guard. Laura asks where they can get another one of those. She says muffler, but it's wrong.
Why bribe an employee for information about where something is located when I'm sure that there are signs? I'm sure that there is a directory of, a map of the layout. Why not just look?
I'm assuming they're short for time, so they're just trying to speed it along. And I'm assuming as well they did not expect the guard to bribe them. So, because the guard asks if they're members, Steele pulls out a $10 bill and says that they are guests of Mr. Hamilton. The guard says that his membership lapsed. I do like this. This is funny. And Steele produces a $20 bill saying that Mr. Jackson phoned ahead to say they were on their way. The guard claims the line was busy all day, and then he pulls out a $50 and says he stood arm in arm with Grant at Appomattox, and I had to look this up, and that he taught him never to surrender without a fight, because this is obviously not my history. So I'm like, I even spelled it wrong. You're gonna love how I spelled it because it's way off. When I typed it into Google, I spelled it.
Wait a second. Isn't Appomattox a French word?
I don't know, but I do know now that there was a battle at the courthouse. So in Appomattox County, Virginia, on the morning of April 9th, 1865, which was one of the last battles of the American Civil War, and it was the final engagement of Confederate General-in-Chief Robert E. Lee and his Army of Northern Virginia before they surrendered to the Union Army of the Potomac under the commanding general of the United States Army, Ulysses S. Grant. So that is now a thing I know.
Yeah, I thought Appomattox was French in origin, the word.
It could be. I have no idea, but like, it's never a word I've heard before, so I spelled it way wrong. I spelled it Appoumatics, and that is not correct.
No.
Yeah, so in my defense, it's not.
It's not my fault.
It is not my fault. That is not my history. Like, I did take a course on the Civil War when I was in university, because I do have a history degree, but if that came up, I forgot it. So, to be fair, that was like 20 years ago. So, but what I did think was funny was that if this were to be like, let's substitute Canadian money here for a second, and this will be even funnier, okay? Because if we're substituting it, Steele pulls out a $10 bill, and he would be saying that they are guests of Sir John A. Macdonald, who was our first prime minister. Okay. His membership lapsed. Steele would then pull out a $20 bill saying that the Queen phoned ahead to say they were on their way. And apparently the guard would then claim the line was busy all day because, you wouldn't answer a phone call from the Queen. And then Steele would then pull out a $50 and say that she stood arm in arm with Sir William Lyon Mackenzie King. So the Queen and the King. I just thought that would be funny. So yeah, the guard assures them that he will show them a good time, takes the money, and directs them to a path around the side of the clubhouse. They walk around the side, and at first they are on the path, and then somehow they end up on the golf course itself, which I'm guessing is not allowed, because, like, wouldn't you get hit with a ball? Like, what? Then they almost do.
Well, I know that there are paths that walk through.
Yeah, and they're on a
golf
path
courses.
at first.
But yeah, you certainly want to keep an eye on the
Yeah.
sky, because things do have a tendency to fall out of them.
Yeah, which happens.
Yeah. Golf balls, doors from 737 MAX aircraft.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, Laura comments on how it's a lovely day. Steele is not in the mood to see it, saying that he doesn't appreciate Descoine trying to destroy his life just as he started to make something of it. Laura rounds on him and says, "Funny how we make our confessions when they think they aren't going to do us any harm." This is an interesting statement to make after I don't know, it seems like she's punishing him for saying something nice, which is a little
Yeah,
odd.
and she mischaracterizes it as a confession when, as he says, he's just merely stating a fact.
Yeah, and I like that this is an interesting fact to state, because, like, it's not like he wasn't flying in high circles prior to this situation he's found himself in. Like, his cons were high-end cons with lots of money involved. Like, he was living a fairly
High-end
lavish
stolen art.
lifestyle. Yeah, exactly. So the fact that he sees being a working person on the straight and narrow as finally making a life of himself, as well as the fact that it involves her, is very telling that he's happy where he is.
Well,
So,
I think it's a change in his whole attitude, because I'm guessing that prior to his becoming Remington Steele, his view of honest work was that it doesn't go anywhere. You're not going to be successful. You're not going to make, you're not going to have a good income. You're not going to have an enjoyable life. It's a workaholic drudgery life.
Yeah, that it would be boring.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so that's probably one of the reasons why he enjoyed being a criminal so much. But now he's realizing that, I can have a legitimate job. It's fun. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's financially profitable. And without all the little issues of, like cops chasing you in Mexico. That sort of
I
thing.
mean, to be fair, that's still happening, but it's a product of his old lifestyle, not something current.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And as you said, he says he wasn't making a confession, merely stating a fact that she might have some interest in. She says if they get out of this, she wouldn't mind hearing some more of those facts. So that's kind of cute. She checks her watch, sees that it's 12:15, and just then a ball comes whizzing past their head and hits a tree, and a woman yells, "4." And,
A little late.
I was going to say, I think you're supposed to yell that beforehand, but okay. I'm not a golfer, so maybe I'm wrong. But
it's like putting a sign for a bump in the road after you hit the bump.
Speed bump. Whoops. So
you just hit one. Yeah.
If you can see this, So she comes down. She asks if they've seen her ball. She looks around for it and gets her club caught in what appears to be a bear trap.
Mm-hmm.
Incensed, she remarks that someone could have been killed and goes off to find the groundskeeper. Are there bear traps on golf courses?
Usually no. And my question was, granted, a golf course wouldn't be in the heart of downtown, but according to the script, this golf course is basically right across the street from Century Towers. Given that geography, if we accept it as true, which we know it's not, but let's accept that it's true. Are there really that many bears in downtown Los Angeles?
Well, I can't speak to downtown LA, but
I'm going to say no.
Like London, Ontario is definitely not as big as LA in any way, shape, or form, but it is a fairly large city for Canada anyway. And not a lot of like extremely wooded countryside around, although there is some, and there have been bears make their way into the downtown a couple of times, which has been really weird.
If you look at Los Angeles, I mean, the area where the
it's
Century
definitely
Towers
not the
is
same.
is so surrounded by
it's industrial.
wooded
Not
area.
industrial, sorry, commercial.
Commercial, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a bear getting there. You know, sure, a bear might wander in from the side and start kind of heading over that direction from some of the wooded areas, but he would be reported and captured by animal control long before he got to the Century Towers.
Well, I wondered too if this was something the Major put there, because Laura does say, "Oh, we were so worried about the Major, we almost stepped into a bear trap." But
well, that could be.
It could be something he put there. I mean,
could be. Yeah, that
Steele
would make more sense.
Yeah, because he comments on the oddness of the bear trap, and Laura says this is a bit of a weird line. She says it's not that unusual, as there are many areas of the city plagued by large predatory animals, which I don't think is true about LA.
I don't think she's talking about
Well, no,
bears.
she's not, because Steele quips like singles bars. And so yeah, I'm going to guess that the Major put it there. And then Laura comments that if the Major wants to kill them, he would have to do a lot better than bear traps. Steele then points out some tombstones that are for some reason in the middle of the golf course with their names and the date on them, February 21st.
I've got this business making tombstones. I'm right in the middle of the golf course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
February 21st, by the way, is my nephew's birthday. I just realized that. Anyway, yeah, they're sitting there. Steele asks the man who ordered the tombstones, and the man says that he doesn't hear so well anymore. There's a lot of people at this golf course that have figured out this grift, because he pulls out Hamilton and Jackson again, calling them their two most renowned audiologists. And he puts his hearing aid in, says a brown-haired guy who mumbled a lot did, and that if they head that way, they can still catch him. So they thank him. Of course, that was
before I had my hearing aid in.
Yeah. They leave, and he laughs as they go. He kind of laughs a little bit. Like, I wonder if these people were paid by Descoine to direct them these.
I don't know if the woman was necessarily,
but I definitely think the guy was.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah. Yes, or at least he. There's something about all of this that he finds very amusing.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would too if somebody paid me to make two random tombstones with people's names on them.
And then some guy comes up and gives me $70 to squeal on
he
him.
only gives him 30 because he doesn't have the 50. He just
okay.
Someone's not doing their math. So
off the top of my head, I couldn't remember. Yeah.
So they run across the golf course, and then landmines start going off. So that's fun.
Yeah,
they managed to, and this is this is a credits clip that we see in the credits all the time, them running across as these landmines go off. And knowing what we know about how they did most of their stunts, this must have been a very exciting scene to film, I would think.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So they managed to survive, only to be met with a very unimpressed foreman who asks why they didn't see the signs warning of blasting taking place. There's one literally right in front of them. Steele says there weren't any signs. The foreman insists that there were, though he can't see any at the moment.
My question is, wouldn't you have more than just a
you think
sign?
You'd have caution tape. Yeah, caution tape, and maybe even like people directing
physical
people
barriers
around that area. Yeah.
Physical barriers, put up a chain link fence or a plywood wall or some sort of physical barrier. Yeah. You know what I see here? I see a lawyer's dream.
Oh yeah, bear traps, dynamite, damn.
Yeah, lawsuit waiting to happen, baby.
So yeah, he asks why they're dynamiting a golf course, and the foreman says that they're extending it. They ask whether a man ran through there ahead of them. The foreman says it was Descoine, their demolition expert. When they ask where he went, the foreman looks, but he can't see him, lamenting that he's never around when he needs him. So Descoine is clearly put some work into this. Laura says he can't have gotten far, and then they're off on the run again. So this is where I had to actually look into the script because, as you said, I'm not from LA either, and some of these locations were confusing to me, like as to what they were specifically, because it looks like a lot of like reservoirs and places with water and weird, yeah. So in the script it says they come out along to the foreman, turns around, steps away from the hill, points over to where a pickup truck, a fellow worker, blah, blah, blah. And then they dash away from the hill toward a marshy area where they pull up and look around. And then they see his shoe and a hat or his shoe prints in the earth. They go after him. And eventually they get to a wash, which terminates against a box culvert. And those are words I have never heard before, so I don't know what a culvert is. Do you?
It is if you're on a small road or a path, it has to go over a river or a stream. They'll build a bridge and they'll have like a metal tube that runs underneath it. It's the metal, or I guess it could be concrete or plastic. It's the mechanism that's used to let the water run from one side of that little walkway to the other, or road or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the official definition. A metal or concrete or plastic structure that conveys runoff surface water underneath a road, railroad, driveway, or other obstruction to the natural flow of water rather than a storm drain.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because I had reservoir because I had no idea what it was. But yeah, that makes sense. So they come to this culvert. They see a pair of shoes on land, what looks to be his hat floating in the water near a pipe. Laura wonders if he swam through the pipe, and Steele points out that it could be a trap, and they don't know how far they could get before they're stuck there, which to me feels like very logical. I would not be going in there. I would be turning around and going home.
It could be the wet world, water world equivalent of a box canyon, where you get in and you can't get back out.
Right? Like, no, thank you. But Laura claims there's only one way to find out and begins to prepare to get into the water. Steele cites Neptune's Daughter with Esther Williams, MGM 1949, and he too removes his jacket and his shoes and heads toward this pipe thing, and they swim through it. They manage to make it up to a grate. It takes a little bit, so it looks like they're not going to even be able to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But they eventually open the grate. As they climb through, he tells her never to do that to him again. And then the next time she invents Remington Steele to give him gills, which is kind of fun.
Okay, so they're going to go diving into a canal and into a culvert full of water with the possibility of drowning if they don't get out, on the chance that they will get out.
Yep.
And they're going to do it in street. Not buying it. Sorry. Oh, and he's still got the gun tucked in his pants. It hasn't fallen out.
Nope. He even comments on how soggy it is when they get up there.
Yeah. And a rain runoff culvert opening up into the basement of an apartment building.
It's a derelict building, so
it doesn't matter.
I'm guessing
it doesn't open up into a building. I'm not buying it.
Well, here's my guess, okay? Because if I'm going to try to logic anything, my assumption is that maybe that building, because it's derelict, it's a tenement building. That's what the script says. So perhaps that was there before the culvert, or
why would you run a culvert under a building with access to the building from the culvert?
Well, because the building's no longer in use. I'm assuming they just didn't get around to demolishing it.
It was built that way? No. Not buying it.
I'm just anyway.
And it's a grate that can be easily removed. So hey, here's a safety hazard. Yeah,
well, nobody's living there. It's completely abandoned, with the exception of the miner.
Yeah, except it hadn't been when it was built. But anyway, all right. Yeah. Anyway.
So anyway,
bad cop.
They come out. Eric's no fun, you guys. There's garbage everywhere, graffiti all over the walls. This must have been at least a cool set to use or to walk through, right?
Could have been.
Because I'm assuming they would either have to find a building in LA with that much graffiti everywhere, or, and I'm assuming they didn't. I'm guessing this is a set, because if you did find something like that was that damaged, it would be a structural risk, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm sure it's a built set.
I'm assuming that they made the graffiti themselves, which I don't know, seems kind of fun to me. So
$50 to a street gang. Here, mess this up.
Exactly. Like, tag it all you like, guys.
Yeah.
Have fun. Steele pulls the gun out of his pants, as you said, and notes that's soggy from the swim. Hopefully that keeps him from blowing his bits off, because I'm guessing, given that their relationship is progressing, he's hoping to use those bits, and maybe you shouldn't be putting a gun down your pants. Just a thought.
Yeah. I'm going to say it's never a good idea to put a gun down your pants.
No, I agree.
Without a holster.
1000%.
At least.
Yeah. So they make their way through this derelict building. He has the gun out. They come to a flight of stairs. Laura wonders if they're walking to a trap. What part of any of this says otherwise? Like, I don't know about you, but all of this says trap.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I don't know, did you ever watch Firefly? The TV show?
I can't believe you asked that question.
Okay.
Yes.
Stupid question. Okay. So
I'm insulted. I'm offended. Outraged even.
in the film, the scene where he has that conversation with, for those of you who don't know Firefly or Serenity, there's a character
We don't acknowledge the movie.
I love the movie. What do you mean we don't acknowledge the movie?
No.
He's really bad cop today. Like, this is... I saw the movie twice before it was
the
even...
movie is Firefly's version of season 5.
Ouch. Ouch. Okay, so I saw the movie twice before it was even officially released. The first time I saw it, they hadn't even attached music credits to it. It wasn't done yet, which was kind of cool.
How did you manage to do that?
Because they did, you know how sometimes they do like pre-screenings where they gauge audience? I got to go to
tell you a story.
I got to go to 2 of those, and one of the actors came to the screening and signed autographs and stuff like that. And that was the one where like some of the music bits had not been added in, so the film wasn't even finished, and it was just really cool. But anyway, where I'm going with this is the scene where Malcolm, one of the characters, has a conversation with Inara, a character who traditionally he fights with a lot. And
it's
in
a
the
love
scene,
fight.
Yeah, it's definitely. But like in the scene, she's very cordial. She's very kind. She politely invites him to come and visit her on the planet that she's on, and he hangs up. And he goes into the cockpit of the ship, and they're all of the crew are sitting there. They were totally all listening to his conversation, and he says, "I take it y'all were listening," and they're like, "Yeah," and he's like, "So trap?" And they're like, "Yeah, trap." And so then he's like, "Cool, we're going in anyway." And then I think it's Wash that says, "Well, what about the part where this is a trap?" Like that's where I was going with this. That's what the scene reminds me of. Everybody at this point should know this is a trap, and yet they're doing it anyway. So.
Okay, rabbit trail. You got to tell your preview story. I get to tell mine. A couple of buddies of mine. Did I tell you this before? I don't know. It seems like I may have said this. A buddy of mine.
He's old and losing his memory.
No, I never had it.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine worked for a small animation house, and he was in the industry, and so he got all these notices and such. And a couple of years after Star Wars, the original, came out, there was an announcement for this unspecified science fiction movie at a theater in our town.
Okay.
Yeah, no details. Just okay. So a bunch of my buddies and I went, and we sat in a row right behind a row that had been roped off. So okay, roped off. Yeah, that's interesting. We'll sit right behind it.
Cast and crew.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
So the theater starts filling up, and then people walk into the row in front of us. The usher comes in, pulls off the rope, and they walk in, and it's like, that's interesting. They're important people. So we're watching the movie, and it is the Disney movie, The Black Hole.
Oh.
Which should have been put there. And the thing is, I think my buddy knew what the movie was ahead of time, because we had been talking about this, and I'd seen some things about the movie and the production of it. And it was a bad movie. And after it was over, they started doing with the cards. They pass out the cards so you can rate it and review. And my buddies and I were just ripping the movie to shreds. And I made some comment about, you could see the matte line from the blue screen. And a lady in the row in front of us says, Disney doesn't use a blue screen. They use a sodium yellow matte screen. I said, traditionally they have. But in this movie, I happen to know from a recent article in American Cinematographer or something like one of those film magazines,
right,
that in this movie, they actually used a traditional blue screen. And she didn't say anything. And my friend who worked for the animation studios looking, and he said, guys, they've been listening to us. And he leads forward this, is that so-and-so from Disney Studios? No. He's just somebody. It's like, we were ripping the movie to shreds right behind the execs from Disney. And they should have listened to us because it was a disaster in the theaters, because it was a disaster of a film. But anyway.
We didn't actually fill out any cards or anything. This was just sort of like I guess they were just gauging audience reaction from like how we responded to it. But given the response to, and I will not spoil it, but there was one particular event in the film that got a huge gasp from the audience, and just like a shocked gasp. Yes. And I know if you know, you know what I'm talking about.
You know, yeah.
And a couple of whimpers. But
no, they
anyway.
For this one they gave us cards to fill out, and we just ripped that movie to shreds. So and that was so much fun.
It's a trap.
Or maybe it's a trap.
It's a trap.
Nobody ever thinks about it being a trap.
Anyway, Steele says that they don't have a choice before they head down the stairs, or towards the stairs. Sorry, they go up the stairs. Eventually, after going through the several graffiti-covered rooms, they manage to enter an apartment that is beautifully furnished and looks like a completely different building. So,
okay, a clean, beautifully maintained and decorated, fully functional apartment, complete with electricity and a functioning fireplace in the middle of an abandoned apartment building. Nope. Not buying it.
We're just going with it.
I'm sorry. With all this hand waving, I feel like I can fly.
Yeah, you're directing the plane. I don't mind. I think it's fun. I'm along for the ride. So, they look through the apartment. They find various photos of the two of them from different episodes. Like there's one from them in Steel Knuckles and Glass Jaws. There's one from My Fair Steel. There's one from Eligible with there's one with him with his legs broken. So like he's been spying on them for some time, and Laura says it gives her the creeps. And a young woman appears behind them with a tray of tea, asking if she wants cream. She introduces herself as the Major's daughter, but she never says her name, and the script refers to her as the Minor because that's how Steele refers to her, the Major and the Minor, when he cites the film.
Right.
Ray Milland, Ginger Rogers, Paramount, 1942. So that's what I'm just going to call her because I don't have another name for her.
I don't either.
Yeah. And in IMDb.
And she is just as insane as her father is.
Oh, she's nuts. She's bat crap banana pants. Like this girl is.
I've never heard that phrase before.
She is several crayons short of a box. Like, a few panels short of a shelf. Like I could go on. Like, all her screws are missing, not just one, all of them. She introduces herself as the Major's daughter, and she looks like she just got off the set of Little House on the Prairie. She's got this like really high collar shirt with like all this lace and a long skirt, and it's very strange. Like it doesn't feel like it fits in the right decade.
Well, it kind of fits with the room decor.
Yes, it does. It definitely fits the decor. But once she gets out on the street and she's got the roller skates, it's like, okay, all right, we're doing this. Sure. So she introduces herself as the Major's daughter. Laura asks her how much she knows about her father. She tells him that she knows that he's wanted, that he's a genius, and that he's a good man underneath it all.
Yeah. He's just a little nuts.
Yeah, he's just a little cray-cray. Laura and Steele sit down. She implores her to help them before he gets himself into more trouble. She assures them that as soon as he's killed the two of them, he's through being a criminal. He promised.
And criminals always keep their promises.
Yeah, exactly. This is where
crazy people always keep their promises.
Yeah. And this is where Steele cites the major and the minor. Laura explains Steele's tendency to mention films. She admits she likes the movies as well, but says they are better ways to spend their remaining time. She suggests they have some tea. Steele refuses, assuming it's poison. She tells him that her father assumed they would say that and assures them that it's perfectly fit for human consumption. Laura says, even still, we're not thirsty. And Steele points out that she could have been ingesting small doses of whatever poison is in the tea so that she would be immune to whatever dose would kill them. What movie does this remind you of?
Rasputin and the Princess?
Oh, definitely not the movie I was thinking of.
Okay.
I was thinking of The Princess Bride.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh my God, you got to see that movie. Because there's a scene where he sits down and he gets into this battle of wits with the character Vizzini, who's taken Princess Buttercup hostage. And he says the battle of wits is that he pours two goblets. He puts poison in, theoretically, one of the goblets and says that the battle has begun and it ends whenever he chooses which goblet to drink from. One is poison, the other isn't. So Vizzini goes through all these like leaps of logic as to which goblet has which poison, blah, blah, blah. And eventually he goes, hey, what's that? And Wesley turns around and he switches them. Wesley turns back. He says, okay, let's drink. He drinks from his goblet. And then Wesley drinks from his. And Vizzini says, haha, you fell for the biggest ruse. I switched when your back was turned. And he's like, actually, they were both filled with lidocaine powder. I've just been ingesting it in small quantities. But what's funny about it, because it's literally what Steele says, right?
Mm-hmm.
That movie didn't come out till 1987. And it's based off of a book, which also has the scene in it. So potentially the writer has read the book. Obviously, he couldn't have seen the film. But other than that... Actually...
It is a historical reference.
Oh, okay then.
It is called Mithridatism.
Cool. That's a fun word to say.
Yeah. Let's see, go back in because I didn't get all this down. It's a reference to Mithridates VI, king of Pontus, who was so feared of being poisoned that he regularly ingested small doses for the purpose of developing immunity. So this was back in 200 BC, roughly.
Okay.
Now the problem with it is that it's not effective against all types of poisons.
Well, no, it wouldn't be.
Immunity is generally only possible with biologically complex types, which the immune system can respond to. And depending on the toxin, the practice can lead to the lethal accumulation of a poison in the body. And the results depend on how each toxic compound is metabolized and passed out of the body. Right. Heavy metals, for instance, can accumulate in the body, which means that taking multiple small doses eventually adds up to a big dose. So, for example, regularly ingesting tiny amounts of lead, mercury, cadmium, or other heavy elements will not confer tolerance and can severely damage body organs. But against other things, yeah. And one of the examples cited is that heavy drinkers can develop a tolerance to the effects of alcohol. Now, there are other problems associated with these types of scenarios, but yeah, it's possible in some cases to do it.
I prefer to think that reference. The writer was a fan of the book, and that's what I'm going with. But seriously,
don't confuse me with facts. My mind is made up.
Knowing the things that you like to watch, you would love The Princess Bride. You need to watch it and then come back to me. And yeah, we'll have a chat. All right. So she laughs and marvels at the fact that they've managed to defeat their father not once but twice. She also says that it does sound like something out of the movies, which is funny, like I said, because even though The Princess Bride hadn't come out yet, if this had aired after that, it would be funnier, but I guess it's not. So we're just going to keep going. Steele says that they were lucky and that luck is some things the Major can't plan around. And she counters that it's better to be good than lucky. which isn't wrong. Like, it is technically better to be good than lucky, but
it just came to mind. I've heard this before, and I recently heard it a couple of times. In fact, this last week, listening to some podcasts or audiobooks, I'm not sure which, or maybe a both, is that the harder you work, the luckier you get.
That's fair. I could agree with that. So she gets up to go get lemon for the tea. She asks if there's anything that she can get them that they would deign to have. They say no, and she goes into the... And here's another issue. Like, she's supposed to be a teenager. I have yet to meet a teenager that talks like this. But I guess if you're raised by... Though. Yeah, I was going to say, I guess if you're raised by a maniacal sociopath, then maybe your vocabulary is a bit better. Who knows?
Well, and he could have... he could have made sure that she was educated in a certain way that would tend to cause her to speak in this way.
Yeah. Well, I definitely am assuming...
I'll say this. People in cults often will raise their kids in certain behaviors and mannerisms and forms of language, and not in a cult manner, but the Amish also, as a religious organization, a very closed community, they raise their kids in particular ways that tend to lead to certain types of speech patterns.
Yeah, for sure. And that's clearly what's happened here, because she's very different. So she goes into the other room. Steele suggests they grab her, thinking the Major won't hurt them if they have her. So he's not wrong, but it's a little weird that he's suggesting taking a teenager hostage. That's new. Granted, she does seem to be very psychotic, but still. So she speaks to them from the other room. They go into the kitchen, and she's gone. She apparently went through a door and then put something up against it. They go back into the living room. They attempt to leave the way they came, only to discover the building's on fire. And the Major is standing behind. He's set the fire, and he's standing kind of behind it, laughing maniacally. Would he be able to get out in time? Because, like, you set a blaze like that in a building that's derelict. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it's going to go up like a...
Might be a bit of luck involved, but...
Yeah.
Depending on how he set it and how much of the debris that was around that he had cleared away, he might have sufficient time.
That's fair.
I
mean,
he
probably
it's
had access to the window and the ladder or whatever that he had set up to escape, maybe. So
yeah,
it is riskier. Oh, so they shut the door. They go to the window only to find out there is no window, just solid brick. Now, here's where, I don't know if you noticed this, but this is one of my favorite, they did 2 takes and they forgot what he was wearing moments, because he grabs his vest, takes it off, and tells Laura to get some cushions to put that by the door to keep the smoke out. So he's not wearing his vest. They run into the kitchen. He tries to kick the door in, but remembers that he's not wearing any shoes. They manage to eventually shove the door open and find that there's nothing but open space. Like, it just opens up and there's a 3-story drop. He almost falls several floors, and the shot we get from the camera shows him wearing his vest again, the vest that he took off. And then when the camera pulls back in and sees Laura pulling him back in, the camera now shows him without the vest once more. So
yeah, well, continuity sometimes slips up in these things.
There was clearly a couple of takes here, but this is an odd one for me, because if the script called for him to remove his vest, then why are there any takes of him falling with the vest on?
Possibly a rewrite that took place very, very quickly after the stunt scene.
Yeah, maybe.
Shot from outside was done.
Yeah.
Don't know.
When Laura pulls him back in, we see the camera now shows, I already said that. They wonder how the Major's daughter got away. And they look up and they see the ladder. There's a ladder retracting itself up the roof. And he observes they have 2 options, either burn to death or jump 3 floors, which are not great options. I don't know about you, but I would not be a fan of either one of those. So he has an idea. He says he goes back inside and grabs a mattress, which he calls his magic carpet. just before they jump, Laura asks if he's ever flown one before. And would this work? Like, would this jump actually work?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it would be... It would work less well if they didn't have a bunch of cardboard boxes down below them.
That's not cardboard. That's metal.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't. Obviously, they shot this with a stunt guy and a mattress. Yeah. So obviously it worked to that degree. But in terms of the real world situation, yeah, if you didn't have something down there to cushion the landing.
Well, because I would think if there's like sharp metal, that would go right through the mattress.
Yeah, it would.
Right,
yeah,
like
there's a lot of safety issues involved in trying to do this in the real world.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Laura says it's the last time she flies coach, which I liked. They look up and see the miner pop her head up over a nearby wall. She says, "Dad's not going to believe this one," before skating away on roller skates.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, we've had the bear trap. We've had the dynamite. Yeah. We've had the culvert. We've had the fire. We've had this. Is the Major hoping that one of these things kills them first?
Yes.
Because the Major and the miner basically created a scenario. It's a no-win scenario. They can't get out of it.
Kobayashi
Maru, yes.
Kobayashi Maru.
And she's amazed that they got out of it using this trick. But they've got more tricks planned down the road. So why would you plan all these tricks if you think that these are going to take them out? And if you thought that these were going to take them out, why would you have more tricks planned?
Well, here's my thought process, because he claimed this is a celebration, right? So his whole deal here is that he doesn't want to just kill them. Because he could have walked into their offices and just shot them.
Well, right. I
right? Like
that.
if he really wanted them dead, he wants to torment them as well.
But if he created a situation where he did not expect them to get out.
Well, I'm assuming that sorry, go ahead.
Which is what this scenario seems to be. They've got no way of escape. One way is through the fire where they're going to be seriously burned. The other way is to jump out, and they didn't expect that because she says, "Hey, he's not going to believe this."
I'm assuming that he's covering his bases. Like, the ultimate goal is that they die, right? If things go well, they lick the envelopes before they even leave the office, in which case he gets to play with them until one of his traps works or the poison takes effect. Either way, he gets what he wants, right? So
it just seems like,
to me, it just seems like he's crackers in the head.
Well, yeah.
Right? And I'm guessing that, like, I could even sort of imagine that he and his daughter maybe had bets as to which of the traps would be effective, right? Like, that's maybe why she's like, "Oh, Dad's not going to believe this one." He thought his money was on the fire, right? So I'm seeing this as he's covering his bases, and if everything else fails, they're going to lick those envelopes.
Okay. All right.
Right. If they haven't already. So yeah, she skates away. Steele reluctantly says they need to go after them. They scale the wall and they begin running once again. They chase her, but on skates, she's faster. She skates down a ramp towards, again, these locations were really confusing to me because, again, I'm not from LA. And to me, this just looks like a really weird, like, opening with like a lot of water and just like they're under bridges, and I don't know, it just,
I think this is a canal that's used for I'm going to guess irrigations. When I was a kid and we lived in Arizona, we had canals like this going through town, and what would happen was once every month, I guess, I don't remember the time sequence exactly, water would come rushing down those canals. And then you would go out into your backyard and you would turn this valve that was at the back corner of your yard. And the water from the canal would come up into your yard along with everybody else's yard and flood the yard. And that's how you watered your lawn.
Yeah.
That's what this looks like to me, is that same type of canal.
Well, the script describes it as initially they're at the base of a bridge and then they go down that ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it's described here as a 3-sided concrete catch basin which supports the dirt hill on which the bridge stands. And they're stuck flat, face first. Its arms splayed wide like a human-shaped pancake thrown against the front wall is the miner, still in roller skates. So this, catch basin, I guess, is where they are, chasing her. And it's just, it was really hard for me to describe the areas because, I don't know what this looks like. I've never seen anything like it. So I had to go back to the script. I'm like, where are they? So,
well, and that's part of the problem with this whole episode for me is that geographically it doesn't work. I mean, these are things that are not going to be in the immediate area of the towers, the Century Towers. I don't think, not all of them. And even if they are, by the time you run over to this one, and then run over to that one, and then follow up on this one, you crawl through this one, you swim through that one, we're well past an hour. There's no way.
I'm going with it. I do have, again, in my notes that he once again has the gun down the front of his pants. And then I wrote, if that thing goes off, he's never consummating his relationship with Laura. So,
this is my rifle. This is my gun. One is for shooting. One is for fun.
Yeah. So they go running across the bridge. She asks him what time it is. He says 20 of. And she replies that it shouldn't be too hard to kill 20 minutes. She suggests they go somewhere, lay low, regroup for the noon deadline. He replies that after all they've been through, does she really think the Major will just give up? She tells him that there's a place she used to hide as a kid nearby. Steele says that he might be following them and that they need to cover their tracks. So they cross a road. She tells him to get a cab while she makes a phone call. So here's what kills me.
Why? Why?
Which why are we talking about? Because what I'm amused by is probably different than what you're amused by.
The phone call. Why is she calling her mother? Why is she wasting time doing that? I mean,
okay, so I'll get into that in a second.
Plus, I'll get the whole conversation has whys in it too. Anyway, all right, go ahead.
He walks into the middle of the street with a gun stuck down his pants that's clearly visible, hailing a cab. I mean, I know it's the U.S., but come on. Would that not raise a couple of eyebrows?
Well, maybe the cab drivers in Los Angeles are just a little more flexible.
Like, oh, hey, that guy with a gun down his pants wants a ride. Sure, I'm just going to stop and give it to him. That to me seems totally logical. I actually didn't have an issue with the phone call. This to me makes perfect sense. No, she at this point I think is questioning whether she's going to make it out of this, and I think that when you get into times like this where you're not sure if you're going to live or die, you call your mom. Like,
well, but it's a phone call that's like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes. I mean, I'm sorry, you're fighting for your life, and right in the middle of this is, I think I'm going to call my mom.
Okay, story time. Because this is why this makes total sense to me. We're going back, actually, ironically, to that Firefly screening. Okay, this was screening number 2. I didn't think this story would be relevant, but apparently it is. So, screening number 2. Okay, both of these screenings were in Toronto. I live in London. That's 2 hours away. Okay. So at the time, I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, and didn't have a car or a license. So I would either have to get a ride there or take a bus. In the case of the second screening, we took a bus, and me and a couple of friends of mine. And prior to that screening, I had a fight with my mother. I don't even remember what the argument was about, but we had a fight. We get on the bus, but here's the thing. That day, I had a really horrible migraine, and I mean a really bad migraine, to the point where none of my medication was working. Mm-hmm. And I took, like, every couple of hours, I took another pill to just try to keep myself, like, functioning, because I was not going to miss this screening, right? So we get to the theater. There's only 6 pills in a packet, okay? Took the whole packet by the end of the day, all of it. Get into the screening. We're watching the film. I've already seen it, so it doesn't matter that I have to go to the bathroom every 3 seconds. But something about that seems off to me because I hadn't had a lot to drink and I'm almost like barely conscious. I can hardly stay awake. We get out of the screening. I look on the back of the box, like the pill packet, and it says like, if you take more than 2 of these in 24 hours, call poison control. So now I'm freaking out. Like, I'm like, oh, great, I'm going to die, right? So I go to a phone booth on Yonge Street in Toronto, and I place a call to Telehealth Ontario, which is like a free like health advice service, whatever you want to call it. And I start asking them all these, like, I tell them what happened. And the lady starts asking me all these questions, like, are you short of breath? Are you this? Are you that? And I wasn't until she started asking me all these questions. And I start to have a panic attack, and I become short of breath, and eventually I pass out in the booth on Yonge Street, and I wake up.
Thanks for the help, guys.
Yeah,
I wasn't sick before, but now I am.
So obviously the telehealth nurse calls an ambulance, and when I wake up, they let me know the ambulance is on their way, right? So even though I had a very nasty argument with my mom, the first thing I did is I called my mom because I was certain at this point I was dying. Like, in my head, I was convinced I was dying. I called her and like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, because I thought I was dying. Like, legit thought I was dying.
Was somebody chasing you?
Well, no, but like...
Okay, that's my point.
But like...
Okay, you were in a situation where you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't really do anything. So
they're still like waiting on things. She doesn't know he's going to get a cab so quickly, especially with a gun in his pants. Like, that's a pretty quick pickup for the cabbie. Like... I don't know. This to me.
Maybe the cabbie saw it and said, "Oh, is that a gun in your pants? Or are you just happy to see me?"
Yeah, right. To me, it fits her character that she would A, call her mother, and that B, the conversation would not go as planned.
Her mother. She does not like her mother. I mean, she loves her. She doesn't like her.
Yeah, but
her mother drives her nuts.
When you're scared, you want your mom to comfort you. You just do. And I think she just was hoping against hope that this time would be different, that she could call. And I mean, this is a common thing that happens when you have contentious relationships with parents, that especially if said parent is passive aggressive in the way Abigail is, that you always hope that this time they're going to react differently, that this time it's going to be, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying that would be the hope.
That sound you hear is me shaking my head back and forth.
and I just, like, to me this reads as perfect, like, on beat Laura. Like, she just wants her mom, she just wants to have a nice conversation with her mom. Like, she's scared and she's hoping that this time is going to be different. Now it isn't, obviously. Like, the conversation she has with Abigail is chef's kiss, perfect Abigail Holt, right? Like, and we don't even hear Abigail's side of things. We just get Laura's. Like, she calls, she asks, she tells her who it is. After a pause, I didn't realize it was your bridge day. I won't keep you. On the other line, her mother obviously asks about the weather because Laura says it's lovely. She then asks how the weather is out there, pauses, says she's sorry. And then she suggests her mother move out there. She clearly thinks she's going to die if she's inviting Abigail to move there. Like, clearly does not think she'll be alive to see that happen.
Well, see, I have a problem with the latter part of the conversation. And, it's after, I'm sure your friends are wonderful. Who else have you got? I didn't think you needed anybody. You were always so self-reliant. Think of how well you handled Dad's leaving. Red flag on that play. Yellow card. No, she did not handle her dad's leaving well at all.
No,
we
but
know this.
It doesn't.
This is somebody who didn't bother to research the characters.
I don't know.
I'm
like
sorry.
This again.
I hate to say it, but that's what it is.
I'm gonna push back on this one because for me, this feels like she's placating her mother because she wants to have a nice conversation with her.
Why?
Like, because she's scared. She wants her mom. Like, she just. I gotta say, from personal experience,
I've been scared, and I've never called my mom when I was scared.
I don't. without getting too personal in this podcast, I know what it is like to have a difficult relationship with a parent that you keep hoping will behave differently and they don't. So
at some point, you at some point you realize that they're not going to, so you just don't do it anymore.
But I don't think she's at that point yet. Like, I think she's still hoping that something's going to change, especially
I think she was way
scared.
past that point, frankly. I mean, we think about her reaction every time her mom showed up in the first season. It's like, oh no, my mother.
Yeah, but if you're on the phone, you can hang up. Like, the conversation goes south, you can hang up the phone, right? Whereas if her mother's right there showing up unannounced, she can't do anything but engage. So she's made this call on her terms in the hopes that she'll get something that she needs, right? She's scared and she wants something from her mother that she obviously doesn't get from this call, but like I agree with you that her mother didn't handle her father leaving well, but I also think that there's nothing Laura could have said here that would have been truthful, that would not have triggered like a horrifically awful fight, and that's not what she wants right now. So she says, look how well you handled Dad leaving, as a way of like trying to at least get something from her. We were going to do good cop, bad cop. This is what I'm going with. But anyway, like, it is interesting though, because she says, who else have you got? I didn't think you needed anybody. And I do think that part is true. I do think Laura assumes that Abigail doesn't need anybody because she didn't remarry and she doesn't seem to, like, aside from Harvey Fetterman or whatever, we don't get the impression that Abigail's been in any relationships since her father left, right? So I'm guessing that Laura has, and it's interesting that she would say that because that's how Laura behaves, right? As she pretends not to need anybody either. So it could be that she's projecting her own feelings in this conversation. Like,
I think there's a difference there. I think that is Laura, that she doesn't want to feel like she needs anyone, whereas in Abigail's case, nobody wants to be around her.
Well, Daniel did. Daniel genuinely enjoyed her company.
Well, okay, granted.
But yeah,
right,
so I don't know. I will concede that the statement of her saying, like, look how well you ended Dad leaving, does appear that the writer didn't research the characters, but the rest of the conversation to me feels authentic.
Okay. Fine.
So they hail a cab. Steele's hailed a cab. He's clicking his fingers. He's trying to get her into eventually she says, you've always handled diversity well. I try to do that. She does say that she loves her and urges her to call when she gets the chance. So like again, I still think she genuinely is afraid for her life. And she's like, better get my ducks in order and tell my mom I love her before, this goes sideways. So they get into the car, which apparently the cabbie has not noticed the gun. And Laura instructs the cab driver to head towards the channel, which the only channel I know of is the English one. Clearly, that's not what this is. So, again,
I'm not sure what that reference is either. So
yeah, I don't know. So they get to, again, what looks like a tunnel. They go into the tunnel. They're in the car first, and as they drive away, the miner follows on the motorcycle. Steele asks how her mother is. He didn't know who she was calling, so it's obviously that he knows her well enough to assume that even when she's scared, she calls her mom. Laura says they're having lousy weather. He says they always do this time of year. And seeing that she's near tears, he puts his arm around her, and she says she's not crying because she's afraid to die, but rather because there were too many things that were out of her control, which this does feel very much in keeping with her character. Mm-hmm. That she's very much somebody who something happened in her life early on when she was in like a prime development stage that was completely unexpected and out of her control. She couldn't stop her father from walking away. And it completely uprooted her, destabilized her, and now she spends the rest of her time trying to keep control. And I think Wilson leaving made that worse. Because she had obviously had a period in her life where she basically said to hell with control and just did whatever she wanted, maybe hoping that would make things easier. And it didn't. The same thing happened. The same pattern repeated. So it's interesting that she says this here, that she wants things to be in control. And Steele admits that he's had the same grievance himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
She says if it were up to her, she would make everything right for everyone. And again, this line really works for her character. Her father leaving was fundamentally unfair. She's in a job where she wants to fix things for people, to make the unfair fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I really like this conversation in the car. And Steele tells her if it were up to him, he'd leave it up to her. She accuses him of saying that to get her to stop crying. He points out
it worked, didn't it?
I don't think he just said that to get her to stop crying, though, because he clearly, I don't think, obviously, she's not in control of everything, but like, if we look back at Steel Threads, when she makes the comment about how she's always been treated as flesh, and he says, well, and she says, steal away with me, you know, blah, 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 blah. And he says, well, thank God you didn't listen or we'd both be scrounging for the rent. Like, he all but admitted there that his stability is a product of her ingenuity and her creativity, and that he, I mean, yes, he could get along without her easily. He'd just go back to being a con man and he could easily make a living. But he's sort of depending on that stability to, I think, keep himself in this position that he's found that he enjoys, as we said before, right? Like, so this is a kind of, I think he's sort of admitting, like, that he kind of relies on her to keep things together a little bit, which is maybe not the fairest way to do it. But yeah, so he says that there are two ways to go through life. Her way, as a math student, expecting to find the universe in perfect working order and demanding too much of herself and everyone else around her, finding herself disappointed at every turn, or, like himself, the wanderer, entitled to nothing, not even parents, finding himself pleasantly surprised when something does go right or someone pats him on the head instead of kicking him in the teeth. Oof.
I find the next part interesting, and I'll throw a curveball on that one when you are done.
But like, talk about like getting to the heart of both of their characters here. Like, the phrase "entitled to nothing, not even parents." That's harsh. Like, that's hard. Like, he doesn't sound bitter when he says it, but it's clear that there has been some bitterness over it in his past. To feel that you're not even allowed to have parents, that you don't deserve it, and just being happy when, as he says, something goes right instead of going horribly wrong.
Born with a kick me sign on my back.
Yeah. So, like, she asks him how he finds the strength to try when he doesn't think he'll succeed. And he counters with, where do you find the strength to pick yourself up time and time again when you let yourself down? She says she believes in herself, and he says he believes in whoever he is at the moment. And when that doesn't work, he becomes someone else. Which, I really like that. It's clearly a survival mechanism that he's adapted over the years to get through what has been a very difficult life, and not to become so bitter that it consumes you, right? She asks him to teach her that so they can run away from all this mess, and he replies that he was hoping that she would teach him how to stand and fight, which I love.
To me, that bit, especially the last part about teach me and then we can run away from this madness, and then he says, I was hoping you would teach me how to stand and fight, reminded me, as I was thinking about this, of something that is totally bizarrely unrelated, but in my mind, sick though it is, makes sense. Gift of the Magi by O. Henry.
Okay.
To me, that it just all of a sudden jumped out at me as like, oh, that's what this is. That's what this dialogue is. It's
really good, I think.
Yeah. That is a good scene. I like that scene in this episode. Okay. Score one for the bad cop.
I will say there is a part of this episode where I think Steele behaves horrifically out of character, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we will. But this isn't it. Like, I really like this exchange between the two of them, and him asking if she'll teach him how to stand and fight, because he admits that he believes in whoever he is at the time, and when that doesn't work, he just ups and reinvents himself. But now he's saying, like, I want to stay. I want you to show me how to stay, which is really, really telling and something that his character has been working towards. So,
right.
Yeah. Laura looks back, notices the miner on the bike, and Steele instructs the cabbie to pull into the car wash. They do.
Teacher. Bandit at 7 o'clock. Can't Laura tell time? It was bandit at 6 o'clock. 5:30 maybe.
Oh, I don't know.
But definitely not 7 o'clock.
I don't know how that works either, so it worked for me.
Well, it's like a face of a clock. So you take the clock, you lay it flat.
Yeah.
So right in front of you is 12 o'clock. Straight behind you is 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock would be behind you and slightly to the left, or a bit to the left. That motorcycle was behind, and depending on where in the shot it was either straight behind or it was slightly to the right, which would be 5:30 to 6. So definitely not 7 o'clock. Anyway.
I just assumed she was as directionally challenged as I am. So.
Well, she is left-handed, so maybe she uses a left-handed watch.
Could be.
Disney makes one of those reverse clocks. Anyway.
So they pull into the car wash. Steele pulls out some money, this is what I was confused about. He didn't have any money left. Laura, where'd they get the money? They used it all to pay maybe at gunpoint. Yeah. Anyway, he pulls out some money, tells the cabbie they'll be happy in the car. I thought it was kind of weird the cabbie got out. Was it common for somebody else to drive your car through a car wash? Because anytime I go through, I drive my own car through.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I have it written down. Automatic car wash. Since when did the driver have to get out?
Yeah, I've never gotten out.
I don't recall ever having taken a car through a car wash back in the 80s. So I don't have an answer for that. I can't imagine that would be standard practice.
Seems like a waste of manpower. You're already behind the wheel.
Well, not only that,
automated.
but it's an automated thing. You drive in. There's this little platform that your wheel goes onto.
You put the car in park.
Yeah. Yeah, it just pulls you through. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that was a weird one. And
can I take a slight detour?
Yeah, sure.
Did you recognize the car? The make of the car?
No, it just looked like an old-timey cab to me. So
that is a car made by the Checker Motors Corporation. They made cars for the Checker Cab Company for years, decades actually. They eventually went out of business because their cars were so overbuilt and they cost a lot more to buy than Ford and GM and other companies were selling cab companies cars for, even though the cars from those other companies would just wear out and fall apart in a much shorter period of time. But they couldn't compete with the initial purchase price, and so they eventually went out of business. But those are neat cars, and if you've ever watched the TV show Taxi, that's the same car that they have.
Yeah, I recognize them.
Yeah,
for sure.
In the garage there. Yeah.
What's weird about that, though, is that Checker still exists here
as a cab company. Yes.
Yeah, but just not those cars. Yeah.
Yeah, as a company that makes automobiles.
Right. Okay.
They're out of business, but they didn't just exclusively sell to cab companies. Cab companies were just their primary customer.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah. Okay. So they tell the cabbie they'll be fine in the car. He asks if they wouldn't be better off in a hotel, and Laura insists it's more exciting this way. I don't know what he thinks they're going to do in there, but he laughs nervously and gets out.
Have you ever been in the backseat of a car?
Well, yeah, but not.
Well, then what's your question here?
I would not be doing anything like that in a cab. So yeah, they go through the car wash. The miner is watching this the entire time. She follows alongside the car as it goes through. When it comes out, the driver gets in, notices they're gone, radios it in to his boss saying that the couple who went in the car wash is gone. But it looks like they ripped the seat. I mean, they got into the trunk somehow.
Well, I know that on a lot of cars, that backrest on the seat comes off.
Yeah. It just looked like they ripped the bottom. Maybe it was already ripped. I don't know. But yeah, so she leaves to go make a phone call, presumably to Descoine, and the car drives away. And as it does, we see Steele and Laura are in the trunk. He asks...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
About this.
How do two people fit in the trunk of that car?
No, it's a big trunk.
Oh.
No, that's not my question. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Finish the line. Okay. Well, in the trunk of the cab, Steele says, "Why didn't we think of this before?" And Laura says, "I've thought about it often." What?
Yeah, that's literally in my notes. Like, she's thought about being in the trunk of a car with him? Like that. I don't know. Of the places that I would envision a romantic
encounter,
that's not one of
them. No.
The logistics alone. I mean, the Auburn doesn't even have a trunk. So,
and there's. No, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm just not going to say it. I'm sorry. It doesn't work.
Okay. He says it wouldn't be the worst way to spend their last hour. They kiss. She asks if he has any regrets. He says only that he didn't live up to the version of Remington Steele she had in mind. Which, my gosh, he's sort of pouring himself out in this episode. Like, he's really kind of being honest. And this is why I think that maybe in the back of their mind, they think that they might not get out of this one. Because Laura calls her mother. He's telling her things he might not otherwise admit to her. And her response is kind of funny. She says, "I won't hold it against you." And he's like, "You're supposed to tell me that I'm everything he is and more." And she says that if I did that, it's going to go to your head and you'd cease to be what you just said you were, which makes no sense at all. And he thanks her for protecting him from himself. This is cute. I like the banter. They realize they're slowing down. And they climb back through the trunk into the seat. And when the cab driver looks in this mirror, there they are again. So this is kind of funny. Like, he's super confused. Laura asks him to make a right. He does what she asks. They climb out, and Laura points to a runoff tunnel, telling Steele that when she was a kid, she used to play there. Sure. But I guess, you know what? If I had a tunnel like that nearby when I was a kid, I definitely would do that too. So, yeah.
We have a Ben reference coming up, yes.
Yeah, they pay the driver. They run towards the tunnels. Steele comments that the tunnels don't look safe for kids, and Laura says that's why they were so much fun, which makes sense. She tells him that she hopes he isn't afraid of the dark as they walk through, and Steele says it's the first time since Descoine showed up that he's felt safe. Right after that, a light turns on ahead of them, and we see Descoine with a lighter. It goes out again, and he laughs maniacally. Steele basically calls him out, says if he wants a fair fight, he's right here. Steele pleads for Descoine to let Laura go, and she in turn tells him that Steele was out of town on the Lily Martin case and that she did all the work. So they're both kind of trying to save each other, which is quite funny because obviously it's not working. Descoine urges them to feel the fear rising in their stomach and choking them. He tells them it will be the last thing they ever feel as an image of him appears in front of them. Steele takes aim with the gun and fires.
I have issue with this, and I know what your issue is, but we'll get to mine.
Yeah,
we'll get to mine after you have yours.
No, you go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, mine might be a rant.
Yeah. After this, they run up and they find that it's a mirror.
Yeah.
The mirror trick would have worked if it had been angled at a 45-degree angle. As it was shown, it wouldn't have worked. In order to be reflected full front, as was shown, with the mirror facing directly toward Laura and Steele, Descoine would have had to have been standing right in front of the mirror. But then he would have been blocking Remington and Laura's view of the mirror with his back facing them. It doesn't work. But if you put it at a 45-degree angle, this is how a lot of the scenes from some of the old movies were done, like trains coming straight into the camera.
Right.
This is how things should have been done in Westerns out in the Badlands of New Mexico, where people are playing with guns. You don't actually stand in front of these things. You put a mirror in front of them at a 45-degree angle, and then you film into the mirror. And when you're done, it appears as if you are standing right in front of it. But as it's presented here, it wouldn't have worked.
Nerd.
Thank you.
Sorry. No, I agree with you. I know that wouldn't have worked either, but I don't know. I guess the technical stuff like that doesn't bother me as much.
It drives me nuts.
I know it does. So that's maybe why you don't like this episode, is there's a lot of technical stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But let's get on to your rant.
For me, it's the character stuff that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And he takes aim with the gun and fires it. And the gun technically hits the target. It just turns out to be nothing more than a mirror. So he basically shot what he thought was an unarmed man and shot to kill. We're just going to skate right past that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right? Like
flapping our arms, trying to fly.
Yeah, like that. For all of the character stuff they get right, I can't see him shooting to kill like that. I can't see him doing it. Like, because at this point...
And you can't even claim self-defense.
No, because he did, like, from what they saw, he did not have a firearm. You could claim self-defense in Canada. It's really hard to claim self-defense because basically you have to prove that your actions were 1000% justified to save your life. You don't get to claim self-defense. Like, it's really hard because, like, you basically have to show that if you hadn't done what you did, they definitely would have killed you, which is a really hard thing to prove. Mm-hmm. Like, really hard to prove, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they're going to say, well, why couldn't you do this?
Yeah, our standard over here in the U.S. is a little bit lower. It's that if you are in fear of imminent danger of your life.
Yeah. No, here you got to prove that you were in imminent danger of your life. Not that you were afraid of it, but that you were in imminent danger. And it's, I taught law for a couple of years. Like, I taught a high school law class, and most self-defense, like defenses, don't work. They fail. Mm-hmm. Because it's really hard to prove. Yes, I would have died had I not done.
Because you're trying to prove something that is by definition unprovable.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, he shot
which is one of the reasons why the whole American legal system is designed as innocent until proven guilty.
Well, so was ours, but it's
right. But there's different levels of presumed innocence.
Yeah.
But in a lot of countries, it's presumed guilty until proven innocent.
Adversarial system.
Again,
versus,
that is trying to prove the unprovable. You can't, because you can say, well, I couldn't have done it because I was somewhere else. Well, prove it. Well, I can make an argument that your story that you were somewhere else is a lie. You can always come up with some variation of it that says, well, no, that's not how that was. So,
and here the burden, and I'm assuming the burden of proof is on the prosecution. Like, they have to prove guilt. You just have to create shadow of a doubt, right? If you're defending yourself, but
reasonable doubt, not shadow of a doubt, reasonable doubt. Which
within cases of self-defense here, anyway, that's hard. Just because if you've killed somebody, if you're claiming that I did that in self-defense, you have to prove that's defense. And yes, reasonable doubt will come into that, right? Because then the jury's going to decide within a reasonable doubt whether or not that defense makes sense.
But the definition of reasonable doubt is obviously different in Canada than it is in the U.S. It's reasonable doubt in the U.S. as in that's a reasonable story, whereas it sounds like in Canada it doesn't matter that that's reasonable. Was that your only choice?
Yeah, it also depends on obviously what the case is, right? Because if we're talking specifically self-defense as a defense, yes, that's what you would have to prove. But the benchmark shifts if you're talking about something like criminal insanity. If you're proven by an expert to be criminally insane, then that's going to work regardless of what the prosecution does. Like, if you have that paperwork or what, it depends on the case, obviously. But in this case, he just shoots this guy. He just shoots right in, like, the face. Like, I just can't. He doesn't like guns. He doesn't like violence. He doesn't like.
There's. That's not justifiable. That's not defendable.
And when Daniel pulled out the gun in the Sting of Steel episode, he was like, "Are these things really necessary?" And he's always nasty things. He does not like violence. He's very much, and I'm not saying he's never been violent. He grew up in a very violent area, and he's obviously had to do some things to survive. But, like, I just can't see him doing this when
his application of violence, from what we gather, has always been there is no, everything
option.
else I've tried has failed.
Yes. So the Canadian version of self-defense, basically.
Yeah. So this is the only option left to me, because this is the situation that the opponent is creating that forces me into this. Whereas in this situation, it's not an existential threat. It's that, Descoine is trying to kill them, but at that moment in time,
he's
not.
There. Yeah, and like, if he had pulled a gun, if Descoine had pulled a gun, then I could see Steele firing for sure. Because if it's him or me, it's going to be me, right? Right. But no, the fact that he brought the gun along with him in the first place is odd. Because even in that case, like Steel Knuckles and Glass Jaws, he had the option of bringing the pacifier or the gun. He was dealing with literal gangsters who he knew would all be armed with firearms.
Right.
But he opted to leave the gun at home.
In that case, the overriding concern was the
baby.
The baby.
Yeah.
In this case, we don't have a baby, but he's shown a willingness to consider carrying a gun, but the impression has always been that it's as a last resort failsafe. Here, it's not a last resort failsafe.
And it's odd that it was just like, we joked about it being in the drawer, but like that, it's odd that it was readily available and loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it loaded sitting in his drawer? Like, that stuff didn't make sense to me. And I will say that that's the one part of the episode that I'm like, I can't skate past that one. It doesn't make sense that he would pull a gun and fire it when he had other options. Like, so yeah, he fires the gun. The Major laughs again and disappears. Steele urges them to give chase. They do. They come across a bunch of rats. Laura says there was a time when she knew each of them by name. Obviously not the same rats, because rats only live about 3 years, but Steele says he would rather not renew their acquaintance, which reminds me of like Indiana Jones, like rats. There were rats, Dad. Lots of them, So they continue to make their way through the tunnel. They come across a journal, which Laura says he must have stolen one of her old diaries.
That's what she says, yeah.
Steele theorizes she must have mentioned this place in it. Does she... I guess maybe she kept her childhood diaries in her loft and he stole them?
Is that or Abigail had them up in the attic and he broke into Abigail's house?
That would have been a trip to Connecticut. And then if Abigail and the Major came face to face, I'm guessing the Major would have just up and killed himself. So I don't think he came into contact with Abigail Holt. I'm gonna guess he stole them.
This woman is insane. I'm gonna kill.
You know what? I get it. It's fine now. We're good. It's a far worse punishment than she's got her as a mother. So yeah, she goes to pick it up, and Steele notices it's attached to a string. He urges her to get down as a large gun shoots at them. Laura pulls on it again. It shoots, but something doesn't seem right. She puts her hand up and declares the Major intends to kill them at noon and not a moment sooner, as they are blanks.
I'm sorry. I don't care even if you think they are blanks. You just don't stick your hand up in the... No. Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't stick a gun down your pants, and yet here we are.
Well, that's true, too.
So yeah, he runs past them. They dive at him. Steele has him by the leg. As they leave the tunnel, he breaks free. They run through the water. Steele and Laura chase after him. He's pushed back. Laura manages to get a kick in, which is pretty cool. Is this a river that they're at now? Like, where?
No, it's another canal, it looks like.
Okay, there's a lot of these, it seems like. Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
Same one, maybe? Different part?
They chase him down. They tackle him. And again, this does not feel in character. They've got him, right? They don't need to do anything else. And yet Steele starts to drown him. Like, Descoine says, I would think twice about violence, Mr. Steele. It's not a pretty path to go down. He says he doesn't care, and he shoves him under the water, and Laura's like, you'll kill him. And Steele says, give me one good reason not to. Like, what? What?
Yeah.
I mean, I get that this guy has done some stuff to you, but like, I don't know. Like it makes sense. It would make sense that Steele would want to get a few good punches in, that he'd want to get his, right? Because he's pissed off. I get that. But literally drowning the dude does not fit for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's out of character. And it's not the best way to deal with something like that. What you do is you maim them so badly that they are totally dependent on somebody else for the rest of their life. They can't do anything other than think and see their withered body dying in front of their eyes. And I'm sorry.
So to the pain is what you're saying.
Yes. You want them to live as long as possible in as miserable a life as possible.
We're going back to the Princess Bride here for a minute. Okay, because Wesley is about to have a duel with the Prince Humperdinck. Yes, that's his name.
Engelbert?
And he says, no, not Engelbert, but he says, oh, to the death. And then he says, no, to the pain. And he says, no, I'm not familiar with that term. And then Wesley says, and I've got the quote up in front of me because you said that, now I need to do it. He says, to the pain means this. If we duel and we win, this is from the book. It's not from the film, but it's similar. I win life for you, but life on my terms. The first thing you lose will be your feet below the ankle. You will have stumps available to use within 6 months. Then your hands at the wrists, they heal somewhat quicker. 5 months is a fair average. Next, your nose. No smell of dawn for you. Followed by your tongue, deeply cut away, not even a stump left. And then your eye. And then the prince says, and then my ears, I suspect, shall we get on with it? And he says, wrong. Your ears you keep, and I'll tell you why. So that every shriek of every child shall be yours to cherish. Every babe that weeps in fear of your approach, every woman who cries out, dear God, what is that thing, will reverberate forever with your perfect ears. That is what to the pain means. It means I leave you in anguish, wallowing in freakish misery. So yeah. I'm assuming you meant something like that.
I'm good with that.
Okay. See, this is why you need to see the movie.
I'm good with that.
Anyway, yeah. So he, police officer shows up, and they look up. They see this cop. He tells them to step away and put their hands on their heads. Laura looks relieved. She says she's glad to see the police officer. He asks which one is Descoine. Descoine identifies himself, thanks the cop for coming so promptly. The police officer tells Laura and Steele to walk towards him with their hands on their head and instructs Descoine to stay where he is until he has them cuffed. The cop tells Descoine that when he gets a death threat to let the police handle it. Laura points out that they were the ones who got the death threat. The cop asks her why they received a call saying that a man named Descoine was to be killed at noon, and why when he got there he found them with their hands around his neck. Laura muses that this must have been his plan all along. This is one of those things, and I apologize if this reviewer is listening, where this would not work in the 21st century, because if a call came in and the guy gave his name, it would get flagged in a database. Says, oh, this is a wanted criminal. We should probably arrest him instead. But I guess not in the 80s. They did not have that kind of a database available to them. So
and then after they put it in the database, they'd mail out the supposed victim a form. So please fill this out and give us all the details. And then, in 6 months when we have nothing else to do, we'll come in and investigate.
So they start to go up the ramp or the incline, whatever you want to call it. She pretends to trip and Steele ambushes the cop grabbing his gun. Laura tells him to call Detective Jarvis of Homicide and tell him that Major Descoine is trying to kill Remington Steele. The cop obviously doesn't listen. He urges them not to do anything they're going to regret. Steele realizes the cop's not going to listen, so Laura grabs the gun, tells Steele to get Descoine. Steele looks over, but he's gone, back into the tunnels. They decide to go back to the office and call Jarvis themselves, saying that if you want to arrest us, you can come do it there. At least it's going to be past noon. So they steal the police car and they drive away. Get a scene change. They return to the office. They unlock the door.
Well,
okay.
They didn't lock the door when they left, and they were the last ones out of the office.
No, but I'm assuming if the minor is inside, she's locked it, which again should be a clue that somebody has gotten in there for sure, because you're right, they didn't lock it. So
no, I thought the minor followed them in because they went in and
I assume she was waiting there for them.
I don't think so. That's not how I read it anyway. I read it that she entered after they walked in and left the door unlocked, as they are so often want to do. But yeah,
well, yeah. Either way,
even if the miner locked it, it should have been a clue.
It should be a clue.
Oh,
yeah,
we left. We were the last ones out. We didn't lock it. Why is it locked?
I don't disagree that it should have been a clue. I'm thinking this was just a mistake from the writing perspective. Like they just
a mistake in the writing.
Shush. All right. They collapse on the couch. They're pretty happy. Steele says they made it. They look up. They hear a voice. They see the miner standing there. She says, "Not quite. Goodbye, Mr. Steele," before throwing a canister with some sort of gas at them and locking them in. Now, we obviously don't know what kind of gas it is, and we find out later it's not even lethal, but it starts to fill the room, and they can't open the door. They try the door to her office. It's been secured as well. Laura attempts to pick up the canister initially, but it's hot to the touch. Steele tries to break the windows, but they are reinforced because they're so high up. That should have been something he knew, because, like...
Wait a minute. Last episode
open.
of Season 1. Exactly.
Yes, they do open. Yeah. So they obviously forgot that because they almost had somebody climb out. Yeah. Maybe they switched window company. Maybe they redid the windows after that. Maybe they were like, oh, well, Alfred almost jumped, so this is a safety hazard. Could be. I don't know. So they put the garbage over top of the canister to try to stop the smoke or at least contain it. Steele suggests the air conditioner. Laura says it would only blow the gas around the room, and then she realizes she might be able to reverse it. Would this work? Because I'm guessing not.
I don't know. Okay. I would think that there would be a possibility of it, but it might take a little bit more than just switching a couple of wires around.
Yeah. If anybody listening is an HVAC specialist, could you maybe let us know? Yeah. Because, they sit down, they wait for the gas to disperse. Mildred walks in wondering what the thing that secured the door was, and then, of course, what the gas is all about. Laura and Steele ask if her date was hot enough. She tells them it was a gutter ball, and that he tried to sell her insurance. Anyone wonder if the date was a ruse to get Mildred out of the office?
Or if it could be, yeah.
I mean, who goes on a date in the middle of the day? It's just weird.
I don't know.
Anyway, I mean, in the middle of the day, sure, but in the middle of your working day, that's weird.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. I don't know. It's been too long since I've not had a social life.
Yeah, that's fair. So just then, the mailman comes in, apologizes for being late. He asks if they have anything for them. They laugh, completely unprepared. And as we noted in it at the beginning here, they go out and they don't do anything except sign the sheets. They don't actually fill out anything on them. And while they're doing that, Laura picks up the canister and realizes it was completely non-toxic. So she's a little confused by that. She's about to lick the envelope when Steele snatches it out of her hands, telling her that they can't be too careful where the Major is concerned. He takes out a small dropper, drips a liquid onto the envelope, which immediately turns red and sizzled. I'm guessing there's some sort of science behind this. Don't know what that is, but...
I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Or at least something science adjacent.
Science fiction.
Yeah, sure. He says the gas wouldn't have killed them, but this would have, and that the glue is laced with a combination of toxins commonly referred to as the destroying angel. How the hell does he know what the exact toxin is?
Well, my issue was, is there even such thing as...
Yeah, I Googled this.
A destroying angel. I didn't find any poison or combination
mushrooms.
Of poisons that is...
Mushrooms. There's poison mushrooms.
Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't find anything that's a combination of poisons as he describes it.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I just found the mushrooms. So.
Yeah. The destroying angel applies to several similar closely related species of deadly all-white mushrooms in the genus Amanita.
Yeah. But he's not wrong, because what I got here, and this granted is from Wikipedia, is the destroying angel and the death capsule, both mushrooms, account for the overwhelming majority of deaths due to mushroom poisoning. The toxin responsible for this is amatoxin, which inhibits RNA polymers 2 and 3. Symptoms do not appear for 5 to 24 hours, by which time the toxins may already be absorbed and the damage or destruction of liver and kidney tissues is irreversible. As little as half a mushroom cap can be fatal if the victim is not treated quickly enough. The symptoms include vomiting, cramps, delirium, convulsions, and diarrhea. Fun. In one study, people who had ingested the toxin were treated with fluid and electrolyte replacement, oral activated charcoal, and lactulose, penicillin, combined hemodialysis, and hemoperfusion in 2 8-hour sessions, and they maybe survived. But so he does say that it would have been hours before it took effect, and by that time the weapon would have been mailed back to the murderer. So that part seems legit, but he's
apparently he's apparently referencing some combination of the base toxins from this
chemical
that might have been extracted and used in some manner and sold as something called the destroying angel to people in the underworld or something like that. But I didn't find any reference to any specific cocktail of poisons that was called. Yeah,
same. The mailman, looking very confused, says, "So you don't have anything for me after all?" Steele says, "On the contrary," and they give him the envelopes. Are these not evidence? And I get that they do it to trap the major, but would this not be dangerous, letting these envelopes out of your possession, given that they're poisoned?
I would think so. But we haven't let logic. We haven't let logic get into the way of the story so far. Why start now?
Could they not just get different envelopes? And by the time the major saw that they were different, it would be too late anyway. They'd have the cuffs on him, right? So
yeah.
I don't know. I think he'd keep those ones and send something else. But anyway, Mildred asked if she missed something. So, and it's a shame she's not in this episode beyond the 2 scenes, because it feels like sometimes they sideline her. And I don't like that. I like her in the episode. So yeah. So she asks if she missed something. We get a scene change, and we've got Major Descoine going into a post office, Laura at the counter in what she assumes passes for a disguise. Is it just me, or were Superman's glasses a better disguise on what these two have going on?
Well, I'll say that the wig, the fright wig on her, doesn't do any favors for her. The glasses
I don't think
at the end where she takes the wig off, the glasses, yeah.
Wait, but what? You're into those glasses?
It's just glasses on her look good. As far as glasses as a disguise, I actually researched this for... Oh, stop laughing.
I agree glasses on her look good, but these ones not so much.
I guess I'm... Oh, what can I say?
Anyway.
Yeah. I did some research for my other podcast about glasses as a disguise, because that same thing came up. And I found an article that referenced a study, or talked about a study. Researchers at the University of New York demonstrated that if you weren't a personal friend of either Clark Kent or Superman, you could be tricked by his glasses. There was a 2016 study about the effect of glasses when it comes to facial recognition. Participants were shown side-by-side images in 3 different groups: people wearing glasses, people not wearing glasses, or an image of someone wearing glasses paired with one that wasn't. And then they were asked to determine whether each of the individuals in the pairs of photos were the same person. So basically, 2 people not wearing glasses, 2 people wearing glasses, and then 1 person wearing glasses, 1 person not wearing glasses. And the people in the 2 different photos may or may not have been the same people. And they wanted to also test the participants' visual comparison abilities, not their memory. So they presented the images side by side so that the participants were allowed to look with as much time as they needed to come to a conclusion. And the researchers chose images of people who the participants wouldn't know or recognize. And the images were also similar to what people are used to seeing on social media, including varied poses, varied facial expressions, different lightings, and different backgrounds. Passport style photos, wanted poster photos, no, those were not in the mix. All the images were all the images were in color and high quality, loosely cropped around the head. The researchers made sure that the images of the same persons didn't share backgrounds or angles or other comparable points of visual comparison. And to make things interesting, they also found similar looking people as foils and added them to the mix. When the subjects were shown 2 images of someone in glasses or 2 images of someone not wearing glasses, 80% of the people were able to accurately identify if the photos were or were not of the same person. But the identification rate dropped to 74% when comparing a photo of a person wearing glasses next to someone who wasn't. So apparently glasses are an effective disguise.
Well, okay, but it wasn't just the glasses I was referring to here, because I think their disguises are just really bad, period.
Well, they are.
But Descoine has been surveilling them for what appears to be the better part of a year.
Mm-hmm.
In various different ways, shapes, form. He's been watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's supposed to be some sort of super genius. You're telling me he can't see past her glasses and terrible wig?
According to the research.
Or Steele's funny little mustache. But he's been watching them. Yeah, he's not a close personal friend, but I don't know. Enemy, I think, counts as well. I don't know.
Well, maybe there's a... Maybe he's just not as observant as he thinks he's been surveilling them, but that doesn't necessarily mean
terrible disguises.
I know they are terrible, but
anyway, so Laura at the counter, Steele's behind her. He's also, I guess, quote unquote, disguised.
Mm-hmm.
He asks if there's anything in the mail for him and tells him the post office box number. Steele finds it and notes that it's from the State Bureau of Investigative Services and asks if he works for them. Descoine laughs and says something like that. Laura comments that it must be exciting to be a private eye, and the major says he wouldn't know because he's just a clerk who minds his own business. They go to hand him the envelope.
Snarky.
Yeah, I know, right? They go to hand him the envelope, and as he gets closer, Steele slaps a pair of handcuffs on him, and they tell him the war is over. A pair of uniformed officers are on hand to arrest him. Obviously, they were hiding somewhere, but not before he tells the miner who is standing behind him to run. She turns to, but Laura tells Mildred to stop her, who apparently is now in the building. I don't know where all these people came from, but Mildred, dressed as a maintenance woman, holds up a broom handle to stop her, which the kid then karate chops in half before making a run for it. They run after her. She's gone. Steele comments on how these Descoines have a way of vanishing, and the major tells him they always come back. Steele tells him that he will see him in about 10 years. They're about to take him away when his eyes rest on the mailbox. He smiles, and the opening to the mailbox is pushed down, revealing the miner inside. How the heck did she get in there?
Not only that,
did she get in there?
In the opening to this sequence from the outside, what did we see? We saw a mail carrier pulling mail out of that mailbox. Yeah. The front panel was open. So
I don't know.
Obviously, that thing had been full of mail, so it wasn't constructed to.
It's like an opening. It doesn't have a flap.
It was. Yeah, I mean, if the Descoines had built that specially for her and planted it there as a dummy, that would look like a mailbox but was non-functional. You could almost make an argument that we could see how that would happen, but it was obviously a functional mailbox. There would be no room in there for her.
No. So he starts to laugh. She smiles, pushes the opening back up. Sure. The police take him away, and Steele suggests they go away, telling them that he knows of this quaint little bar on Mykonos. And that's the tag. That's how it ends. So.
Yeah.
And obviously they were intending to set this up to bring the miner back and just never got around to it. So I'm guessing that's why they had her escape. But what would they have done if she literally was a minor? She would have been placed in foster care. It's not like she would have been arrested.
Well, for her activities in this case, yes. But if something happened in the future, if she was a minor now, she wouldn't necessarily be a minor at some later date. And so,
true.
You know,
true. Yeah.
But also there is precedent for prosecuting juveniles
for
as
sure,
adults.
as adults.
So, depending
but,
on.
I mean, I guess the argument would be made here that she was under direction from her father, who is a first-class psychopath. And I don't know if you have the same laws, but in Canada, if she's under the age of 18, anything that she does get arrested or convicted for, her record gets wiped clean once she hits 18.
In theory, that's supposed to be the way it works here in the U.S. as well, although wiped clean is not literal. In other words, they don't actually destroy the records. They're still available. They just limit access to them. But I think law enforcement and a lot of other Justice Department and other entities can get into them if they want to. It's not like they've just totally disappeared.
I could be wrong, but I think here they do expunge your record. That being said,
I think that's theoretical, though. I think it's theoretical. If it's like it is in the U.S., it's theoretically expunged in that
right
under normal circumstances, it doesn't get brought up. You're speeding. They run wants and warrants on you. Those things aren't going to come back up. But if you are arrested for something significant, they're still there. They're not necessarily immediately available, but they're going to get to them.
Anyway, she gets away. She escapes. That's kind of how it ends. Obviously, they meant to leave that open-ended, but they didn't come back to her at all. So,
which I'm fine with, because
I know you are.
To me, like I've said before, supervillains to me are very comic bookish.
Yeah,
and
this feels more like a James Bond villain, and in that context,
a very low rent James Bond villain.
I mean, but in that context, it doesn't bother me as much, but I see where you're coming from. I think there's only 2 times they have a villain return, and the other time is with Anthony Delgatti, Dancer, Prancer, Donner, and Steele, and Santa Claus is Coming to Steal. I think that's the only villain, quote unquote, that returns. And I will admit that his return is more effective.
Yeah, that villain is less of a comic book character.
Yeah,
than
we'll
Descoine
get there when we get there. But I like this episode.
The plots of those episodes are less comic bookish.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, though, Dancer, Prancer, Donner, and Steele is also a bottle episode. Right? It's self-contained. We're low on budget. We're going to stick us all in this one spot for 40 minutes or whatever.
And I don't have a problem with that, generally speaking. It's just this episode, it wasn't just that they were low on budget. It felt to me like we need a script for this coming week. When do we need it by? Tomorrow? Have we got anything started? No? Okay, well, let's take a few hours and bang something out. It feels to me very, very sloppy, very rushed. I'm not saying that it couldn't have been turned into something better. I just don't think that it was up to. This is at the very low end of all the Remington Steele episodes until we get to season 5.
Okay, I would not say that, but there are definitely a couple of episodes that I will actively skip. This isn't one of them. I enjoy this one, but
fine, whatever.
All right, so if that's all on the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, we've got show notes, links to Amazon US and Amazon Canada, as well as merch links, ways to support us, all kinds of fun stuff. Also, social media resources such as
the official SteeleWatching Facebook page, the Twitter and Instagram pages, and a link to the unofficial, but always official, Facebook SteeleWatchers fan group.
Yeah. We had a couple people join that said they found us from the podcast, so that's kind of cool.
That's good, yeah.
Neat.
It's nice to know that we're helping the community.
Yeah. In some small way.
Yes.
Right. Well, the next episode is yours. It's Small Town Steel. So we're going back to cowboy boots and matching denim.
Canadian tuxedo, eh?
Canadian tuxedos all around.
All right. Well, I guess that's it, eh?
Yeah. All right, eh? Bye.
Bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Eric and Sara here. Just a quick announcement to let you know that, yes, we do appreciate everyone who listens, participates, and supports the podcast in whatever way you do. But we wanted to give an extra thank you to those who are so graciously giving to be monthly financial supporters.
We are making live streams of our recording sessions available to anyone who is a monthly financial supporter. So not only can you watch us live as we record our podcast episodes, you will be getting access to the raw, behind-the-scenes, unedited version of episodes before they get officially released.
And Sara, does that include our mistakes and screw-ups and our humiliating?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
every
it does.
Single one of them.
Every single one of them, yes. So again, this is just an extra thank you to those who are going above and beyond. But whether you choose to become a monthly financial supporter or not, we still love you. We want to say we thank you for your support, your encouragement, and your feedback.
If you want to become a monthly financial supporter, please visit our website at www.SteeleWatching.com to sign up.